directly under Archduke Curtis Schanberg. A gloved hand from someone in a blue uniform firmly grasps a document, with another lighter-skinned hand also on it, conveying intensity or a struggle over the paper. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looking determined with closed eyes, declares, "I'll do it," as the red-haired woman in a blue dress and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stand by her. The red-haired woman in a blue dress, looking astonished, questions Chloe's seriousness, while a thought bubble or unseen voice warns that the task will be 100 difficult, advising her not to proceed. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, with a subtle smirk and downcast eyes, internally questions why the assignment came to her if no one else desired it. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, facing away, explains to the blonde-haired man and the red-haired woman in a blue dress that a 200 quarterly payment would provide for her family for an entire season. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, recalls her past as a pauper, thinking that with this income they wouldn't have to endure such hardship for another quarter. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, clutching papers, contemplates that she only needs to serve for a year, regardless of the challenges, and wonders how difficult the Archduke's service truly can be. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, winks cheerfully and gives a confident thumbs up. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks ahead with a serious expression, commanding someone to get your head down. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stands regally in uniform, presented as the star of the 200 incentive and the reason, the cause, the existence. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, hangs upside down in comical distress, exclaiming, "Do I even need to explain?" Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks unimpressed as narration identifies service inspection as a frequent phrase used by him, the proud soldier of Ivanez. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks distressed, her face reflected over a night scene of a palace, internally vowing to endure even the most horrible circumstances. A multi-panel image shows a dark blue-haired woman with glasses diligently working at a desk, planning to discard something before being caught. Narration identifies a blonde-haired man as Brigadier General Curtis Schanberg, her direct superior and the king's brother and an archduke, who is obsessed with work and overtime, forcing his aides to work overtime and punishing indiscipline. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, holds a small item, contemplating, "Should I eat it?" before accepting, "It's fine, it's just punishment." Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks wide-eyed and surprised, holding a small glowing object amidst a bright floral background. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stands with his arms crossed in a stern expression in front of a grand building. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, cries hysterically while a chibi version of herself sitting on her head asks if she wants to get punished again by the Archduke, as a brown-haired man reacts in shock and an unseen voice questions why they arrived at that particular moment. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, gazes down with a subtle smile, while Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks up at him with wide, tearful eyes. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, extends his hand, offering to extend the service inspection by 30 minutes as an apology, while a chibi Chloe looks horrified and another voice responds, there's no need for that." Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smirks confidently, touching his chin. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks utterly shocked, exclaiming, "What the?" ? Quote. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, trembles next to Curtis, the blonde-haired man, as an overlay of chat messages discusses the expensive cost of an assassin versus the risk of hanging for self-action. Curtis then says, "Oh, and," to which Chloe replies, "Yes, please speak, Archduke." Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks intently at Curtis, the blonde-haired man, as they stand facing each other in the palace. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks wide-eyed and stunned, asking, "What?" Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smirks subtly, looking off to the side. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, with a stern expression and a chibi version of herself shouting, "Murder," firmly declares, "Loyalty." A magnificent palace with intricate architecture and a grand fountain is depicted under a bright sky. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, stands attentively in her uniform, looking slightly surprised. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, gazes around in awe at the vast palace, noting its grandeur as the brown-haired butler invites Lady Ambroise this way. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks shocked upon learning that today's banquet is actually a matchmaking event for our Lord's marriage, asking, "What? For who?" A shadowy depiction of Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stands beside a red-haired woman holding a fan, with narration revealing the Archduke is supposed to meet with a duchess from Grandland. The brown-haired butler, with a subtle smirk, explains to Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, that while a duchess like the potential bride would have many matches, our lord has some weaknesses due to his lineage. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks thoughtful, wondering if the Archduke's weaknesses are why he's being pressured into matchmaking, and internally expresses a desire to discover those weaknesses herself. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stand proudly in their matching white and blue uniforms against an ornate, light-filled background. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looking surprised with a red dot on her nose, comments on their matching clothes looking different, recalling being called a palace rat, while Curtis brusquely tells her to hurry up. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks down at Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, criticizing her wrinkled clothes and lack of ceremonial decorations. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, serenely touches his chest, displaying his impeccably adorned ceremonial uniform. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, gently fastens a medal onto Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman's uniform, as she looks up at him with wide, surprised eyes. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks stunned with a wide eye, wearing the newly pinned medal, uttering an ellipsis. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks straight ahead, his gloved hand resting near his chest, with an ellipsis in his speech bubble. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, reacts with a surprised gasp and apology, asking, "What? Did I get shot?" as Curtis stands calmly beside her. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles faintly, internally commenting that it's like pearls on a pig's neck while Curtis stands behind her, and she concludes, "I guess not." A charming chibi character with purple hair and a hat clutching a plushie is depicted below a grand palace at night. The opulent interior of a grand palace hall, adorned with a large chandelier and golden accents, shines brightly. The brown-haired butler stands conversing with the brown-haired woman in a green dress. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, stands in awe within the grand hall, exclaiming, "Wow!" Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looking displeased, tells Ensign Ambroise to stop looking around, while Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks surprised and asks if the decorations are electric. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks distressed, apologizing and promising to correct her behavior as Curtis stands with a stern expression, and a chibi version of Chloe cries out, "Miss." The king introduces the pink-haired Duchess Isabel of Glintland, in a portrait as the blonde-haired man's intended bride. The blonde-haired man questions why the pink-haired woman is his bride, while the dark blue-haired woman observes the awkward situation. The blonde-haired man and the king engage in a childish argument about the blonde-haired man's arranged marriage, with the blonde-haired man repeatedly refusing. Chloe Ambroise is dismayed, realizing the high-ranking royals are fighting childishly, finding it disheartening. The blonde-haired man, determined, apologizes to the king, stating he has something to say to his brother, which prompts a surprised reaction from the king. The king laughs at the blonde-haired man's thought of having a promised woman, questioning if he expects him to believe such a claim. The blonde-haired man dramatically pulls the wide-eyed Chloe Ambroise into his embrace. Holding Chloe Ambroise close, the blonde-haired man confidently declares that she is the woman he promised to marry. The blonde-haired man continues to hold Chloe Ambroise, who stares in wide-eyed shock at his unexpected declaration. Chloe Ambroise seethes in furious anger, wishing to punch the blonde-haired man. Chloe Ambroise's rage intensifies, wanting to humiliate the blonde-haired man instead. In a lavish room, the blonde-haired man stands with his back turned, facing Chloe Ambroise. Chloe Ambroise smiles as she commands the blonde-haired man to lower his head, and he looks at her with a serious expression. Chloe Ambroise looks away with a serious expression, while a small, purple-haired chibi figure sits on her shoulder. The blonde-haired man stares intently, surrounded by a subtle blue glow. Rippling blue water fills the scene as a thought dismisses something as, never mind. Chloe Ambrose speculates that Junwee's hair would have been cut if he hadn't tied it up, and Junwee asks for clarification. Chloe Ambrose eerily clarifies that it's his neck that would be cut, holding an apple with a mischievous smirk. The blonde-haired man appears annoyed, contemplating how Chloe Ambrose claims to go home while not actually going. The blonde-haired man smiles brightly as he harshly criticizes a report he received, demanding it be rewritten. Chloe Ambrose, with arms crossed, sarcastically suggests the kneeling blonde-haired man boil his report. The blonde-haired man looks worried, while Chloe Ambrose appears upset, with an ominous red atmosphere between them. The blonde-haired man introduces Chloe Ambrose as his love, who recently visited as the king watches. Chloe Ambrose looks utterly shocked at the blonde-haired man's announcement, while he maintains a serious demeanor. The blonde-haired man charmingly calls Chloe Ambrose a little dumb, prompting her to furiously yell, "What the hell?" Chloe Ambrose frantically questions the blonde-haired man's strange statements, warning him of trouble if he doesn't correct his actions immediately. The blonde-haired man stands thoughtfully, a translucent image of himself reflecting his contemplation. The blonde-haired man seems to communicate with a translucent blue projection of himself, who promises to explain everything later using a special skill. Chloe Ambrose appears confused and stressed, as the blonde-haired man's special communication skill has no effect on her, leaving her unable to understand. Chloe Ambrose, standing beside the blonde-haired man, is bewildered by the situation, questioning what the heck. Chloe Ambrose stares wide-eyed, completely overwhelmed and confused by the unfolding events. The blonde-haired man lists numerous benefits and favors to a distressed Chloe Ambrose while holding her hand. The king questions why the blonde-haired man is suddenly holding Chloe Ambrose's hand so tightly. Chloe Ambrose's eyes are wide with shock, reflecting her astonishment at the ongoing situation. The blonde-haired man dramatically questions why he is being forced into marriage if it isn't for true love. The blonde-haired man solemnly considers the possibility of losing his right to the throne, symbolized by a crown. A romantic tarot-like card appears, but the narrator states the Archduke currently has no romantic interest. The king would approve if the Archduke found a commoner to marry to avoid his situation, but this would cause him to lose his throne. The Archduke faces a terrible dilemma: be sold abroad or marry a commoner and lose his throne with no good options. As a variable in the Archduke's dilemma, the speaker, from a poor but minor noble family, emerges with her own plan. Chloe Ambrose is identified as the strategic variable who could solve the Archduke's problem. The king expresses suspicion, asking Chloe Ambrose if her terms aren't too advantageous. The blonde-haired man keenly observes, asking Chloe Ambrose if he's wrong about her constant need for money. Chloe Ambrose's wide pink eyes reflect her surprise at the blonde-haired man's accurate observation. A younger Chloe Ambrose and a boy joyfully recall a memory of eating soaked bread, highlighting their past poverty. Chloe Ambrose stands in an elegant blue dress, with a brown-haired man standing formally behind her. Chloe Ambrose stands shocked, realizing that negotiations are not supposed to occur after the price has been paid. Chloe Ambrose looks stunned, covering her mouth, as the blonde-haired man calmly asks, "What?" Chloe Ambrose looks deeply flustered and blushing, indicating she is moved by the situation. The blonde-haired man gently lifts Chloe Ambrose's chin, their faces close as she blushes, surprised by his touch. The Archduke holds Chloe Ambrose's arm in a lavish room filled with nobles, including the king, as a loud "Dong" sound erupts. Chloe Ambrose looks distressed, pressing her hands together, while Junwee and Duchess Isabel observe her in a grand room. Curtis holds Chloe Ambrose's hand, who looks startled, and he declares that this is exactly what he had hoped for. Curtis and Junwee sit opposite each other in a lavish room, where Junwee states that 15 days is not enough time. A decorative banner unfurls, presenting the title History of Ivanez. A long blonde-haired woman tenderly holds a blonde, swaddled baby against a soft floral background. A young blonde-haired boy named Curtis, dressed nobly, is revealed to have been granted dual noble titles at his mother's earnest request. The young Curtis holding a sword with a startled look, is depicted as narration states he was an overly intelligent and talented prince. Curtis, standing with his back turned, observes a glowing crown, as text explains his military service and his continued right to the throne as Archduke of Berk. A dark, fragmented background frames text revealing that this situation deeply unsettled the king. Junwi animatedly suggests Curtis consider past admirers like Lady Arya from the Navy, while Curtis internally dismisses his brother's unreasonable ideas. Chloe Ambrose sits dejectedly in a chair, seemingly overwhelmed, while Curtis observes her, thinking of her as, quote, that unfortunate lady. As Curtis embraces Chloe Ambrose, the king questions if they are engaged, looking on in surprise. Chloe Ambrose, with wide, shocked eyes, exclaims that she had been planning to reject it until now. Chloe Ambrose reflects, believing their love was just a game, questioning who this woman is and realizing her past thoughts were precisely that. Chloe Ambrose, visibly flustered, tells the annoyed Curtis she would have acted differently if she knew he was sincere enough to declare their relationship before the king. Chloe Ambrose and Curtis exchange uncomfortable glances as the abstract, dark background emphasizes a tense atmosphere. Curtis sternly tells Chloe Ambrose to control her expression, but she replies with a pained face that she is also at her limit. The king, looking stern and suspicious, sarcastically questions Curtis's skilled subordinate, wondering if he truly expects him to believe this situation. Chloe Ambrose stands, a slightly shocked expression on her face, as narration identifies her as the card that would immediately make the king believe. Chloe Ambrose, looking defiant, states that if they are not believed, she will have no choice but to present proof. Chloe Ambrose, with a serious expression, declares that the item she wears is the symbol of her beloved's proposal. A close-up of a red gem brooch reveals an engraving of the House of Berk's emblem, as the narrator offers it for verification. A worried chibi Chloe Ambrose ponders that if the king dismisses her proof as staged, they would have no means to refute his claim. Junwi calmly suggests that the king's furious demands for proof would displease the other nobles present. Chloe Ambrose smiles mischievously, playfully asking if there's counterproof, then suggests they simply wrap it up. Ha ha. The king's face contorts in furious, disbelieving anger, realizing the situation is 100% fake, a reaction Chloe Ambrose appreciates, noting she wouldn't have seen it without Curtis. Chloe Ambrose, looking serious, questions what the plan is regarding the marriage from now on. Chloe Ambrose looks tearful and disheartened, lamenting that she will end up getting married without ever experiencing a proper romance. Chloe Ambrose looks away, downplaying Curtis's thanks by stating it's not that big of a deal. Curtis looks surprised as Chloe Ambrose asserts her indispensability and questions if she's someone he absolutely needs to keep, to which he hesitantly agrees. Curtis observes Chloe Ambrose, who stands across the elegant room from him. Curtis, with a surprised and confused expression surrounded by question marks, questions, before you, Chloe Ambrose smiles brightly, exuding a cheerful demeanor. A sinister-looking Chloe Ambrose with a dagger orders Curtis to hurry up, while a tiny, cheerful version of herself smiles below. Against an abstract, swirling blue background, a voice declares vengeance, promising to make someone pay for all the overtime and punishments. Chloe Ambrose, with an angry and distorted expression, demands an immediate, genuine, and sincere act as proof of trustworthiness. Curtis's face is etched with annoyance and displeasure. Curtis questions if Chloe truly wants this. As a chibi, Chloe eagerly tells him to kneel quickly. Curtis and Chloe Ambrose stand facing each other in an elegant, formal room. Hands hold open a ring box, revealing a purple jeweled ring explained to be the one Curtis's mother received from the late king. Curtis kneels before Chloe Ambrose, presenting her with the ring, her expression obscured from view. Curtis holds open the ring box with a purple jeweled ring. A thought bubble above him simply states, romantic. Chloe Ambrose's eyes are wide with shock, her face illuminated against a dark, textured background. A beautiful pink-haired woman, identified as the Duchess of Glitland, elegantly holds a teacup amidst a floral backdrop. A chibi purple-haired character in a witch's hat smiles cheerfully. Curtis looks on with a serious, contemplative expression. Chloe Ambrose looks surprised, her eyes wide with astonishment. The open ring box reveals the purple jeweled ring now identified as the Flame of Divinity. Curtis offers a subtle, confident smile. Chloe Ambrose is appalled by the heirloom proposal ring, calling it too much pressure, while Curtis, holding the ring box, questions if this isn't what she desired. Curtis subtly smiles, his blonde hair and purple eyes reflecting a confident demeanor. Chloe Ambrose firmly states that Curtis initially obstructed her path to marriage, then sought her help, which she provided, and now, regardless of events, she dictates the terms of their agreement. Chloe Ambrose expresses concern for her family, who now face scrutiny from other nobles due to her sudden engagement with Curtis. Chloe Ambrose acknowledges that even for a fortune, this marriage isn't something she'd willingly choose, but accepts that avoiding it is no longer an option. Chloe Ambrose declares her intention to hold the power in their contract, making her terms crystal clear. Chibi Chloe Ambrose, with a sheepish expression, wonders if she might have been too aggressive. Chloe Ambrose's intense, swirling red eye shows her internal struggle, debating whether to hold back but concluding she must stand firm. Curtis smiles confidently, his purple eyes gleaming. Chloe Ambrose addresses Curtis with a determined yet slightly nervous smile. Curtis and Chloe Ambrose stand face to face in an elegant room, exchanging a knowing glance. Chloe Ambrose looks down at Curtis, who is now kneeling on the floor, surrounded by glowing blue energy, following an apparent impact. Curtis, rubbing his head, declares that despite any repercussions, Chloe Ambrose is precisely the bride he has been seeking. Chloe Ambrose, with a bright smile, clarifies that Curtis means someone who handles business well. Curtis confirms her interpretation, adding that he particularly values her sharp insight into his intentions. Curtis faces Chloe Ambrose, who appears surprised as he proposes to her once more. Curtis gently holds Chloe Ambrose's hand amidst a soft floral background, her expression unreadable. Chibi Chloe Ambrose contemplates her new role, musing if she is now a temporary master rather than a mere stray dog. Curtis questions Chloe Ambrose if she dislikes the arrangement, to which she replies that she has no alternative. Chloe Ambrose, with a serious and resolute expression, declares that she will become Curtis's temporary master. A gloved hand presents the purple jeweled ring in an open box, as an unseen speaker states that his mother's life changed when she wore it. Chloe Ambrose looks thoughtfully at a gold ring now worn on her right ring finger. Chloe Ambrose's tearful eye reveals her shock and realization that they are truly engaged. An unseen speaker, likely Chloe, expresses outrage at Curtis, who is depicted with a bare torso and unbuttoned shirt, thinking of him as a perverted man. An unseen speaker continues to protest, asserting that even as a couple, their relationship is strictly business, while a smaller voice questions what they are talking about, as a grand palace is shown at night. Chibi Chloe Ambrose blushes profusely, holding her chest in embarrassment, finding the situation unbelievable. An exterior shot displays a magnificent, sprawling palace under a clear sky. A character with dark blue hair, likely Chloe Ambrose, is shown drawing a portrait at a desk, prompting another character to recall suspicions about Chloe secretly sketching the Archduke's portrait, which was merely a crude sketch with holes. Chiaobi Chloe Ambrose cries in frustration, lamenting that others don't understand her feelings, while the dark brown-haired boy points and Junwi, the light brown-haired man, questions if it was really like that. Chloe Ambrose tells Leah, her dark blue-haired younger sister, that the situation just happened, as Leah angrily questions why Chloe called Curtis unpleasant just days ago. Chloe Ambrose, with a subtle smirk, dismisses Curtis as a fool who doesn't understand her feelings, while Leah demands honesty, suggesting Chloe is being sold for money. Chloe Ambrose looks downcast, confirming that Leah's blunt assessment about being sold for money is true. Leah, Chloe Ambrose's younger sister, looks distraught and asks if she is an idiot, questioning who would marry someone for money. Chloe Ambrose, with a comically furious expression, demands to know if Leah is her sister or her enemy, grabbing her face. Chloe Ambrose forces a tearful smile as an unseen speaker states the marriage will happen in 7 days. An elegant building with ornate windows stands against a bright sky, signaling a change of scene. Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, her face obscured, holds a book and quietly questions if this is all. The reddish brown-haired man, seen from behind, reflects on feeling as if he had seen a ghost, wondering how the woman could have such a terrifying face. Curtis embraces Chloe Ambrose, who looks uncomfortable, while the green-haired man Junwi below appears shocked and asks if this can even be called affection, as Chloe cries out, "Darling!" A newspaper article featuring black and white images of Curtis and Chloe Ambrose details how Archduke Schanberg refused a political marriage for his current lover, supported by Prince Frederick, causing an uproar. The reddish-brown-haired man indignantly questions the royal's behavior, expressing frustration over Archduke Schanberg and now his son, while Duchess Isabel apologizes for unintentionally causing turmoil. The reddish-brown-haired man, covering his eyes in distress, insists he should be the one apologizing for a royal so openly disregarding national interests. Duchess Isabel, holding a teacup, listens as the reddish-brown-haired man considers that this situation might actually benefit the royal family. Duchess Isabel, fanning herself with a confident smile, thinks that such an outcome is preferable to someone neglecting national interests for personal gain. A chibi reddish-brown-haired man, the king, smiles with arms crossed next to Duchess Isabel. The chibi king smiles knowingly, as an unseen speaker, likely Duchess Isabel, remarks that he has a valid point and that the Duke is quite astute. Duchess Isabel sits elegantly on a couch while the reddish-brown-haired man, the king, standing nearby, invites her to stay longer, to which she graciously accepts. An exterior view of a grand palace is shown as an unseen speaker departs, bidding farewell, and another, likely Duchess Isabel, responds respectfully to, "Your Majesty." Duchess Isabel dramatically throws her hands out in furious frustration, exclaiming, "Damn it!" Duchess Isabel looks deeply distressed, holding her forehead in her hand. An unseen speaker questions the location of the dowry items, and another unseen voice confirms they are stored in the next room. Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, stands observing large wooden crates in an opulent room, while a maid waits nearby, the sound of thump-thump suggesting activity. A gloved hand reaches for an ornate green and gold urn displayed within a protective glass case, part of the valuable dowry. At night, outside a grand palace, a voice announces the arrival of Warrant Officer Chloe Ambrose, and an unseen speaker inside invites her to enter. Chloe Ambrose stands with her back to the camera as Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and Junwi, the light brown-haired man, ask if her family has settled in, and Chloe gives a hesitant reply. Chloe Ambrose looks content as chibi versions of her family express delight, with Leah, her dark blue-haired younger sister, wondering if a soft playground is actually a bed, and the dark brown-haired boy lamenting his supposed early demise. Junwi, the light brown-haired man, winks and points, declaring that this marks the first step to becoming a married couple. Chloe Ambrose, Junwi, and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, sit formally at an elegant table in a grand room, ready to discuss terms. Junwi suggests reviewing each person's submitted terms, starting with Chloe Ambrose, who clears her throat to present her first condition. Chloe Ambrose looks enraged, reaching out as Curtis, the blonde-haired man, immediately denies her first clause for no overtime work, causing her to protest loudly with a thump. Chibi versions of Curtis and Chloe Ambrose bicker, with Curtis musing about already being remembered as a heartless boss, and Chloe clarifying that a husband and a boss are entirely different. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, seriously explains that overtime is unavoidable for the Archduchess, requiring 247 duties, including banquets. Chloe Ambrose looks surprised, questioning if these new duties also count as overtime, a realization Curtis, the blonde-haired man, admits he hadn't considered. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, clarifies that there will be no overtime as long as it's limited to her duties as a warrant officer, pleasing Chloe Ambrose, and her no overtime clause is approved. Junwi, the light brown-haired man, seated with Chloe Ambrose and Curtis, expresses approval, but then wonders how Chloe Ambrose knew this detail. Junwi, the light brown-haired man, proudly asserts that Chloe Ambrose is his irreplaceable adjutant, while Curtis, the blonde-haired man, surrounded by crossed-out names, simply moves on to the next item. A golden banner displays Chloe Ambrose's second clause, demanding a contract fee of 1 million Sing and a 400 salary increase. Chloe Ambrose looks furious, stamping her foot as Curtis, the blonde-haired man, accepts the contract fee but refuses the salary increase, prompting her to question his stinginess. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, explains that her salary comes from the national treasury, and a raise now would give the king an excuse to act against them, as a chibi king thinks about the implications. Chloe Ambroisi's eyes turn to dollar signs, radiating joy and loyalty as Curtis, the blonde-haired man, agrees to personally pay her a 10 million Sing annual maintenance allowance, and her clause is approved. Junwi, the light brown-haired man, smiles softly, looking content with the negotiations while holding a document. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, looks distressed. Realizing Curtis, the blonde-haired man, is annoyed, thinking she's conducting another service inspection, which she vehemently denies. Junwi, the light brown-haired man, looks contemplative, quietly pondering the ongoing negotiations. Curtis, the blonde-haired man seated at the table with Chloe Ambroise and Junwi, questions the meaning of Chloe's new proposal. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, asks Chloe Ambroise if she thinks he's a magical wish-granting lamp, but she insists her requests are well considered. Chloe Ambroise explains to Curtis, the blonde-haired man, that her current actions openly defy the king, a point he acknowledges is true. Chloe Ambroise argues that if the king becomes angry, he would target her and her family more easily than Curtis, to which he agrees, stating that is also true. Chloe Ambroise smiles, concluding that her and her family's lives would be in greater danger than his, leading Curtis, the blonde-haired man, to understand that she expects him to prioritize her interests 3 times during their contract. A golden banner proudly displays Clause 3, Curtis Schanberg must always obey Chloe Ambroise, accompanied by an approved stamp and a chibi Curtis. Junwi, the light brown-haired man, holds a document and announces that it is now time to review Curtis's conditions. A golden banner shows Curtis's first clause. Chloe Ambroise must fulfill her duties as a Schanberg to the best of her ability, which Chloe, seated at the table, acknowledges and understands. Chloe Ambroise looks shocked as a golden banner reveals Curtis's second clause. She must not interfere in his romantic affairs during their contractual marriage. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, questions Chloe Ambroise's surprise, reminding her the marriage is temporary, then provocatively asks if she loves him. Chloe Ambroise, Junwi, and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, are seen from above, continuing their detailed contract discussions at the table. Chloe Ambroise, looking shocked, points at Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and questions if he is dating. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stares directly ahead with an unreadable expression as an unseen speaker questions if he is in a relationship. Chloe Ambroise, with a wide-eyed, shocked expression, points and addresses Curtis as Your Excellency, in disbelief. Chloe Ambroise, Junwi, and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, continue their formal discussion at the ornate table in a serene room. Junwi, the light brown-haired man, smiles discreetly while holding a document, appearing amused by the turn of events. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, sighs in annoyance, asking Chloe Ambroise what she thinks he is, to which she hesitantly begins to reply, Chloe Ambroise smiles brightly, suggesting Curtis, the blonde-haired man, is a robot, as a glowing robot-like figure of Curtis displays messages about performing service inspection and restarting. Chloe Ambroise, with a triumphant smirk, warns Curtis, the blonde-haired man, that he's going straight to the dungeon for violating Clause 3, while a small robot vacuum cleans tufts of hair. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, casually suggests Chloe Ambroise wait a bit longer, as he plans to find, date, and marry someone else, leading to their divorce, which Chloe acknowledges with a subtle smirk as a valid reason. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, asks Chloe Ambroise what constitutes personal space, and she promptly responds, the bed, causing him to question if she realizes they are married. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, argues that they should at least pretend to use their bed for the servants, while Chloe Ambroise, looking irritated, asks why he is making a fuss about not sharing a bed. Chloe Ambroise, looking furious with a sharp crack sound, questions Curtis, the blonde-haired man, if he has feelings for her and demands to know why he won't give up. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, glares with an angry aura, stating that he feels nothing but anger right now in response to Chloe's query about his feelings. A gloved hand draws a line through a clause on a document, explicitly striking out invasion of personal space during the contract. Chloe Amberwaz, standing with Curtis, the blonde-haired man, agrees to the approved clause, preventing her from invading his personal space or expressing romantic feelings, then also agrees to tie her hair and wear long clothes when in bed. Junwee, the light brown-haired man, smiles warmly as he holds a document, indicating satisfaction with the finalized terms. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, explains to the brown-haired woman, Noelle, that he trusts her, but the situation must remain a secret, especially from Agatha, to which Noelle agrees. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, questions Agatha, and the brown-haired woman, Noelle, clarifies that Agatha is her little sister. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, looks flustered and shocked, covering her mouth in disbelief, exclaiming, "No way!" The blonde-haired man, Curtis, and the brown-haired woman, Noelle, look concerned as Chibi Agatha and Chibi Noelle lament that Agatha won't receive a contract payment. Curtis then instructs Noelle to prepare a fake contract. The brown-haired woman, Noelle, confidently states the task is easy and muses that the title will be inherited by the couple's son. The brown-haired woman, Noelle, questions the concept of a dowry for a salaried soldier, but the blonde-haired man, Curtis, asserts he will cover everything. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, looks utterly shocked as an unseen speaker demands an 80 million payment, prompting her to exclaim, "What?" The brown-haired woman, Noelle, reveals that Glitland proposed an 80 million dowry, an open act of defiance, and presents the contract. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, holds the contract, noting that the substantial dowry will make it appear as though he loves her tremendously. A close-up of the contract shows clauses for title inheritance and an 80 million dowry, causing an unseen speaker to think about the enormous sum. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, looks distressed, clutching the contract and questioning if she can fulfill her part properly. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, stands in an elegant room, smiling slightly at the dark blue-haired woman, Agatha. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, looks up with a surprised and wide-eyed expression. A grand palace interior is shown through an ornate window. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, looks embarrassed and uncomfortable in a white dress, exclaiming it's her first time and an awkward dress, while the blonde-haired man, Curtis, observes. A chibi brown-haired woman, Julia, struggles to lace up the back of a wedding dress on a distressed chibi dark blue-haired woman, Agatha. The brown-haired woman, Julia, kindly explains to the dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, that she must wear the dress Curtis's mother wore, despite it being too small. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, smiles while holding a teacup, surrounded by delicate floral patterns. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, glares intensely with glowing red eyes, contemplating extreme measures. The brown-haired woman, Julia, reassures the dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, to endure the fitting, promising 100 perfectly fitting outfits after the wedding. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, braces herself, emphasizing that she must hold on just one more time as her dress is being tightened. A loud A-A-A-A-G-H scream emanates from above a grand palace, with birds flying across the sky. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, sits on the floor in tears, repeatedly saying no, while the blonde-haired man, Curtis, stands observing her. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, extends his hand, instructing someone to hand him the ribbon. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, stands closely behind the dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, holding her from behind with an intense gaze. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, holds the dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, from behind, both looking serious in a formal room. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, leans intimately close to the dark blue-haired woman's, Agatha's, ear, speaking softly. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, blushes, looking down and thinking that the intimate situation feels a little strange. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, looks concerned as the dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, appears ghost-like and distressed, held rigidly in his arms. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, looks down in disappointment, realizing that their current method is not working. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, holds the unconscious, dark blue-haired woman Agatha, concluding it's a fracture and pondering why it felt weird, while telling someone to stop exaggerating. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, with a menacing smile, holds a sword as he leans over the unconscious, dark blue-haired woman Agatha, explaining that it was an immobilized position. An elegant palace exterior is shown as an unseen speaker calls for Julia, who questions if it's already time. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, questions the brown-haired woman, Julia, about getting a new dress 3 days before the wedding, to which Julia apologizes and confirms a custom dress is impossible. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, looks thoughtful, pondering how the situation came to this point. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, adjusts her white dress, stating that altering a ready-made dress is faster, despite the tight schedule. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, sits on the floor, appearing resigned and acknowledging that they have no other choice. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, tries on a jacket, explaining that they will need to try on all embellishments, and even this will be a tight schedule. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, interrupts the dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, and the brown-haired woman, Julia, asking them to wait. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, announces he has an idea, surprising the dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, and the brown-haired woman, Julia. The magnificent palace stands under a clear sky, marking the eagerly awaited wedding day. A cheerful sun and a white bird illustrate the clear weather and soft serenades of birds on the wedding day. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, in a white and purple outfit, adjusts his collar, presented as the star of the wedding. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, in a similar outfit, looks utterly exhausted with a sigh, described as the beautiful bride. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, slumped over, attributes her exhaustion to the blonde-haired man, Curtis, reflecting on the many intricate tasks of the sacred ceremony. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, sarcastically remarks that it was easy for Curtis, who retorts she should have been born into royalty if she's jealous, leaving Agatha frustrated. The blonde-haired man, Curtis, and the dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, stand with a white-haired man in a purple cape, observing the grand outdoors. The white-haired man, Prince Frederick, raises a hand in greeting as his name is announced. The white-haired man, Prince Frederick, tells the dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, to be at ease, stating she will be his superior by day's end, as she salutes in response. The dark blue-haired woman, Agatha, salutes with a surprised and slightly flushed expression. The silver-haired man, Prince Frederick, marvels at someone's diligent and earnest nature. Prince Frederick questions Agatha about her marriage to his uncle, offering help if she is threatened, while Agatha internally juggles emotions and Curtis remarks that it's quite enough. Prince Frederick informs Curtis it's his turn to go, making Curtis wish he had started with that before bidding them farewell. Agatha finds the situation awkward, realizing she is alone again with another superior. Prince Frederick and Agatha stand facing each other, exchanging a direct look. Agatha's eyes intensify, making her wonder if she is being tested. Prince Frederick thoughtfully considers the concept of love with a subtle smile. Prince Frederick maintains a charming smile, his green eyes glinting. Curtis hands a document to Prince Frederick, who is seated at a desk. Prince Frederick questions the use of the temple for the wedding, to which Curtis explains it is for the wedding and His Majesty would never allow it to be opened. Curtis, in his ceremonial uniform, stands with a knowing expression. Prince Frederick, gesturing, tells Agatha that he understands his uncle's predicament. Prince Frederick explains that his uncle has no interest in the throne, yet his father, the king, remains insecure and now uses marriage to banish him, while Agatha wonders if he should speak of the king that way. Prince Frederick nods, indicating his understanding, but hints at a caveat. Agatha stares ahead with a serious, unyielding expression. Prince Frederick argues that if Agatha sought social standing, she wouldn't have spent years buried in the military. Prince Frederick postulates that a financial agreement would be risky, as the king might seek revenge after a divorce, rendering any received wealth worthless. Prince Frederick concludes that, from his perspective, Agatha stands only to lose in this situation. Agatha wickedly grins, stating she participated because she really wanted to see his uncle's head buried in the ground. Agatha, looking cheerful amidst hearts, declares it's time to explain. Prince Frederick appears startled, reacting with a hand to his chest as pink, sparkling energy surrounds him. Agatha winks and gives peace signs, exclaiming that Chloe is a lucky girl. Prince Frederick and Agatha look at each other, both speechless, as Agatha maintains her pose. Agatha looks worried, wondering if she overdid it, as Prince Frederick looks on with a distressed expression. Prince Frederick awkwardly thanks Agatha, extending a hand. Curtis adjusts his hair while Agatha looks on with a surprised expression. Curtis looks serious as Prince Frederick welcomes his uncle back. Prince Frederick explains his concern, stating he was ensuring Agatha wasn't extorting people like a corrupt noble, just worried. Curtis, annoyed, declares he feels like tormenting Prince Frederick instead of the citizens. Prince Frederick cheerfully waves goodbye, deciding to leave before his uncle can pick on him further, promising to return. Agatha stares ahead with a stern, slightly irritated expression. Onlookers express their surprise and excitement about the Grand Duke Berg's unexpected marriage. 3 elegantly dressed women gossip, with the red-haired woman guest exclaiming in feigned shock how vulgar it is. The light brown-haired man guest comments that effort is necessary since the bride comes from a family of no standing. The red-haired woman guest points out that the bride's family consists only of children, with no parents present. The dark brown-haired man guest looks irritated, grumbling that the bride is a nuisance and acts as if she's the only one there. The dark blue-haired woman guest on the couch advises the dark brown-haired man guest to hold in his anger. The dark blue-haired woman guest warns that anger will tarnish their sister's reputation, but the dark brown-haired man guest furiously questions if his words could truly ruin her image. Duchess Isabel, elegant in a pale dress, stands poised in the grand hall. Duchess Isabel speculates that a woman was sent to seduce his grace, and now she will completely overshadow the bride, her beauty too great to easily compete with. The purple-haired woman guest suggests that no ordinary dress or makeup will suffice, while the blue-haired woman guest reveals even Queen Mildred's toiletry room was open for the occasion. The purple-haired woman guest remarks on the fierce competition, as the dark brown-haired man guest announces for everyone to take their seats. The light brown-haired man guest sighs, realizing the ceremony is beginning, and wonders what will unfold. Duchess Isabel sits with a displeased expression, while a blonde-haired woman guest in the foreground smiles. 2 figures stand silhouetted at the end of a grand aisle, marking the commencement of the wedding. Agatha walks down the aisle with Curtis, while Junwi and the green-haired woman guest watch with shocked expressions. Junwi stares in disbelief, questioning what he is seeing at a wedding. Curtis and Agatha, in ornate white and blue military-style wedding attire, stand together with serious expressions. The narrative flashes back 3 days to when Chloe experienced severe rib pain, accompanied by a loud "AAAAGH" scream from the palace. Chloe smiles and points, while Curtis looks on concerned, and a spectral, long-haired Agatha screams in distress. The red-haired woman, Julia, explains that certain elements are correct and essential for a marriage to be recognized. A voice asks if Curtis is planning to wear just a crown and underwear, to which he emphatically replies, "Oh, of course not." Chibi Chloe Ambroise joyfully exclaims about the guard's very own ceremonial uniform, showcasing it with excitement. Julia reacts with shock, questioning if Curtis is truly going to wear a military uniform, to which Curtis clarifies he means the white ceremonial uniform. Chloe Ambroise explains her initial resistance to wearing the uniform, citing her unwavering loyalty as a member of the Guard. Curtis proudly displays a banner declaring that by wearing a military uniform to his wedding, he's proving his disinterest in the throne and wishes to be left alone. Julia looks distressed, insisting it's still a wedding and questioning if Curtis is actually going to wear the uniform, while Curtis thoughtfully muses. Curtis and Chloe Ambroise stand together in their ornate white and blue military-style wedding attire, both with serious expressions. Junwi and the purple-haired woman guest look surprised, as Junwi comments that no one would have thought of wearing a military uniform to a wedding. Chloe Ambroise looks regal in her uniform and Queen Mildred's crown, as an unseen speaker marvels at how well the crown suits the uniform. 2 guests listen intently to an elegant, pink-haired woman guest who thinks that her situation is not the case at all. The elegant, pink-haired woman guest and Chloe Ambroise are framed together, As the elegant pink-haired woman guest observes, they give off entirely different vibes. A close-up highlights the intricate, sparkling brooch adorning Chloe Ambroise's uniform, shimmering with light. Curtis and Chloe Ambroise stand before the minister, a light, brown-haired man in ceremonial robes. Curtis and Chloe Ambroise stand together, both appearing serious, with Chloe wearing her crown and showing a slight glint of a tear. Chloe Ambroise stands poised in her uniform, internally thinking her second wedding won't be difficult at all. Chloe Ambroise reflects on a past image of herself in a white dress, smiling blissfully, contrasting it with her current thoughts of not with her. Curtis and Chloe Ambroise stand together as Chloe thinks that until that day comes, she will have mountains of tasks to complete. Curtis subtly smiles in profile, his purple eyes gleaming with confidence. Various guests gather, and a brown-haired woman guest observes Curtis's handsomeness, admitting she came to see the Archduke. The minister asks Curtis if he has something to present as a vow before God. Curtis leans intimately towards Chloe Ambroise, placing a hand on her back, drawing her close. Curtis and Chloe Ambroise share a tender kiss, their faces close together. Curtis gives Chloe Ambroise a knowing, charming smile. Chloe Ambroise stares ahead with a stern, perhaps surprised expression adorned with her crown and necklace. The minister instructs Curtis and Chloe Ambroise to continue with the vow, then adds that there's one more thing. A gloved hand, presumably Curtis's, opens a box with a soft click to reveal an exquisite gold ring with a large purple jewel. 3 women guests, including a red-haired woman guest, react with surprise, as the red-haired woman guest recognizes it as Queen Mildred's ring. Curtis gently holds Chloe Ambroise's hand, looking at her with an unreadable expression. Junhui and the purple-haired woman guest gasp in shock at the unfolding event. 3 women guests gossip, exclaiming in surprise that the Archduke is serious and actually giving the ring to the bride. Junhui questions why people are reacting so strongly, wondering if such a gift isn't normal, while the dark blue-haired woman guest looks on. Chloe Ambroise looks concerned as an unseen speaker states that it's not Chloe Berg, but Chloe Ambroise. Chloe Ambroise, with a tear in her eye, thinks that the ring, regardless of marriage, belongs to sister Chloe. Chloe Ambroise stares ahead, her expression questioning, wondering, why is he? Curtis stands tall and imposing, with a blurred, younger blonde man behind him, creating a powerful presence. Curtis looks confidently at the younger blonde man, who smiles and thinks to just accept it for now, while a narrator notes Curtis delivers a killer line. Chloe Ambroise looks worried, her crown slightly askew, as if troubled by recent events. Chloe Ambroise is shown in 2 panels, first looking aghast and asking why she is receiving the gift, and then looking seriously concerned, while a narrator states, Chloe learns quickly. Curtis and Chloe Ambroise stand side by side, as Chloe wonders if the expensive gift is, quote, compensation for damages. Curtis smiles knowingly while Chloe Ambroise looks shocked and distraught, questioning what kind of damage could justify such an expensive offering. Chloe Ambroise is shown in profile against a dark background, lost in thought. Chloe Ambroise stares wide-eyed, directly ahead, in a moment of intense realization against a dark background. Curtis looks charmingly at Chloe Ambroise, reminding her that it is a wedding after all. Curtis and Chloe Ambroise share a passionate kiss, surrounded by a glowing, heart-shaped energy, sealing their vows. The magnificent palace is bustling with elegantly dressed guests arriving for the wedding ceremony under a vibrant sky. The red-haired woman guest and purple-haired woman guest gossip, as an elegant, pink-haired woman guest with intricate jewelry walks past them. The red-haired woman guest questions the Duke of Glintland's character, implying he was fooled by beauty, while the purple-haired woman guest laments her ill timing. The red-haired woman guest smiles, stating they witnessed something important today. Curtis and Chloe Ambroise share another intimate kiss amid sparkling light and floral decorations, signifying their union. The red-haired woman guest smiles, seemingly observing Curtis and Chloe Ambroise as they unenthusiastically eat cake with forks, with Curtis thinking they must be having a blast. Chloe Ambroise complains that Curtis was very disrespectful and didn't warn her about the kiss, to which Curtis replies, questioning if anyone doesn't know that kissing happens at weddings. Curtis, with a towel on his head and wearing a blue robe, stands contemplatively, holding a white towel. Chloe Ambrose eats a large mouthful of cake with a fork, looking displeased, with crumbs around her mouth. Curtis and Chloe Ambrose share a tender kiss, their faces close together. A chibi Chloe Ambrose looks comically upset with cake crumbs on her face, while Curtis sternly tells her to clean it properly because it's bleeding. Chloe Ambrose drinks from a mug as Curtis, drying his head with a towel, declares he will sell the compensation goods for profit and states she can do whatever she wants after the divorce. Chloe Ambrose, holding a mug, looks surprised and questions if there are still tasks to complete after the wedding ceremony. Chloe Ambrose walks behind Curtis, who states it's her first day as a duchess, and she wonders if there will be servants at the mansion, hoping not. Curtis, in his blue robe, gestures towards a grand hall filled with numerous people as Chloe Ambrose observes from behind him. Chloe Ambrose looks shocked, holding up a hand, with Curtis partially visible behind her. A large group of maids and butlers are formally lined up in the palace hall. Curtis smiles mischievously, revealing that approximately 80 of the assembled staff are spies for Her Majesty. The magnificent palace is shown in a wide exterior shot under a vibrant sky. Philip Deltang, a man with dark hair and a mustache, adjusts his tie, introducing himself as a very distinguished butler. Philip Deltang stands with several maids and a male servant, explaining that these are the servants employed by the Berg family and that he manages all of them. A dramatic night scene of the palace unfolds as an unseen speaker reacts in shock, questioning the meaning of the situation. Philip Deltang looks utterly shocked as he internally processes the question of becoming the butler for the Berg family. A man on a throne instructs the kneeling brown-haired man, Philip Deltang, to report all of Curtis's movements and, if possible, find his weaknesses. The reddish-brown-haired man, the king, smiles cunningly, completing his thought about finding Curtis's weaknesses. Philip Deltang holds a stack of reports marked Curtis's work and reports day and night, internally wondering why the Duke is such a diligent workaholic. Chloe Ambrose stands with her arms crossed, looking serious in her military-style uniform, against a pink floral background. Philip Deltang asks Lieutenant Monfils when the couple will arrive as he needs to greet her, to which Lieutenant Monfils replies that they are tired. Philip Deltang expresses his annoyance that the Duchess is already getting arrogant and cheeky, but insists they will wait for her arrival. Lieutenant Monfils smiles confidently, confirming she understood and will relay Philip Deltang's message, to which he approves. Philip Deltang stands among other servants, internally noting that with the tension gone, the chance of them making a mistake is high. Curtis and Chloe Ambrose walk side by side in the grand hall, as an unseen thought expresses the intention for them to make a fool of themselves in front of all the servants. Philip Deltang looks smug, internally thinking that things are proceeding just as he expected, while two female servants gossip behind him. Philip Deltang bows respectfully to Curtis and Chloe Ambrose, thinking that the mansion will surely be filled with energy now. Chloe Ambrose extends her hand to Philip Deltang, introducing herself and expressing a need for his help, while Philip Deltang looks surprised, questioning if she is offering a handshake. Philip Deltang internally questions if Chloe Ambrose knows how to treat a maid, then outwardly states he is honored to serve such a kind lady. Chloe Ambrose asks Philip Deltang if he once served the king, and after he confirms, she questions if he now holds both royal court attendant and butler positions, to which Philip Deltang replies no, stating the king entrusted him to serve the Duke of Berg. Philip Deltang internally thinks Chloe Ambrose truly doesn't understand things, questioning how someone could serve two masters if they don't have two bodies. Chloe Ambrose looks furious, demanding to know why Philip Deltang is acting high and mighty. Philip Deltang and two female servants look utterly shocked, with Philip Deltang gasping, "What?" Curtis stands next to a stern-looking Chloe Ambrose as Philip Deltang internally notes her attitude changed instantly and decides it's time to get on with the performance. Philip Deltang bows his head, apologizing and admitting he didn't notice the situation. Curtis and Chloe Ambrose stand together as Chloe Ambrose smiles faintly, questioning Philip Deltang if he was eagerly planning something to see her face even before she was married. Philip Deltang looks flustered, denying Chloe Ambrose's accusation, while Curtis sternly asks him what else it could be then. Chloe Ambrose questions Philip Deltang if boasting about his incompetence, especially not knowing his master's status is his hobby, to which he insists it's not that, but that he's been busy with wedding preparations. Philip Deltang looks distressed, questioning if it's his fault again with a triple exclamation. Chloe Ambroise, with a calm but firm expression, suggests she thought Philip Deltang was serving the king, who is of lower rank than them, and questions if he wasn't. Chloe Ambroise, with Philip Deltang in the background, questions his rude and sarcastic behavior, asking if he was trying to start a fight from the moment he offered a handshake. Philip Deltang, looking flustered, clarifies it's a misunderstanding and he was genuinely complimenting her beauty, not being sarcastic. Chloe Ambroise smiles sinisterly, asking Philip Deltang if he doubted her beauty and wanted to see for himself, while he reacts with wide-eyed shock and a clenched fist. Philip Deltang frantically insists she is misunderstood, claiming he called her beautiful purely out of joy. Philip Deltang desperately asserts he genuinely thinks she is pretty, while Chloe Ambroise, looking unimpressed, dryly responds, "Oh, my darling." Curtis, with his arm around Chloe Ambroise, smiles knowingly, observing that she's quite soft in the mansion and doesn't need to repeat herself to subordinates, as the mansion isn't the military. Chloe Ambroise looks exasperated, internally wondering if Philip Deltang is truly a total fool to be judgmental again after just being scolded. Philip Deltang looks flustered, insisting he wasn't trying to judge her grace and was merely trying to compliment her. Philip Deltang questions Chloe Ambroise's meaning, unsure of her previous statement. Chloe Ambroise, with a subtle smirk, recalls Philip Deltang's earlier offering of a handshake. Philip Deltang attempts to explain his handshake as a customary greeting, but Chloe Ambroise sarcastically questions if she's not even a customary lady worthy of a hand kiss, while Curtis observes and Philip Deltang insists he didn't mean that. Chloe Ambroise firmly tells Philip Deltang that while she accepts corrections on etiquette, she won't tolerate his passive-aggressive aristocratic backhandedness, which felt like reading a manual on such behavior. Philip Deltang compliments the estate's future brightness to Curtis and Chloe Ambroise, though a narrative quote translation reveals his thoughts of being qualified to judge her. He then states he's honored to serve a lady whose hand he can kiss, which a second narrative quote translation interprets as questioning her basic noble etiquette. Philip Deltang apologizes for his oversight, implying Chloe Ambroise was wrong to be at the mansion before marriage. Chloe Ambroise then, with a sinister smile, asks if he meant she's a high-footed woman, which Philip Deltang frantically denies. Philip Deltang, with a hand to his chest, sincerely declares his utmost loyalty in serving Archduchess Chloe Ambroise. Philip Deltang's confidence wavers as he observes the other servants looking away in discomfort, suggesting he's been caught in his previous behavior. Philip Deltang looks utterly distraught, wondering if Chloe Ambroise is far more skilled than him. Chloe Ambroise smiles smugly, looking down at a tiny, flustered Philip Deltang, who, in a lower panel, appears overwhelmed by the realization of her formidable skill. Curtis and Chloe Ambroise stand tall as Philip Deltang prostrates himself, sincerely apologizing to the Archduchess. Philip Deltang bows, apologizing for his excitement in serving a new master, while a thought bubble ominously warns him he may have to serve a new master again. Philip Deltang remains prostrate, contemplating the unsettling idea of serving a new master yet again. Philip Deltang looks worried, clearly troubled by the suggestion of changing masters once more. Curtis and Chloe Ambroise stand together as Philip Deltang, unseen, internally assures himself they cannot fire him since the king sent him. Curtis and Chloe Ambroise share a chilling, wide-eyed smile, making Philip Deltang, unseen, question if he actually can be fired. Philip Deltang looks distressed, contemplating that if Chloe Ambroise acts outside common sense, such an outcome is possible, then decides to end the confrontation, reminding himself the king sent him. Curtis and Chloe Ambroise stand together as Philip Deltang, unseen, internally agrees to end the confrontation. Chloe Ambroise leans into Curtis, who places a comforting hand on a visibly upset Philip Deltang, acknowledging that Chloe is also upset and that Philip Deltang's agreement is noted. Curtis smiles confidently, stating he won't fire Philip Deltang, as it would be an insult to his brother. Philip Deltang looks resigned, as Curtis explains he ruined Chloe Ambroise's first night of marriage and must offer sincere apologies, suggesting, for example. Curtis smiles cunningly, suggesting a service inspection as an appropriate form of apology. Philip Deltang looks bewildered, wondering if a quote, inspection is akin to a military punishment for soldiers. Curtis asks Chloe Ambrose what kind of punishment she prefers after she deems his service inspection too lenient, but she reiterates that Philip Deltang should not be fired. Chloe Ambrose smiles terrifyingly, making a gun gesture with her hand, suggesting a shot to the head as a punishment, reminding them she's a former naval officer. Chloe Ambrose laughs, playfully suggesting she shot Philip Deltang by accident, while he reacts with extreme horror. Philip Deltang then desperately thinks he must bear with it to avoid losing the chance to see the king. Curtis sternly questions Philip Deltang's continued standing. Curtis smiles menacingly, urging Philip Deltang to kneel quickly, warning that the Archduchess might actually shoot him. Philip Deltang looks utterly terrified as he collapses to the ground in a dramatic drop. Philip Deltang prostrates himself fully, begging forgiveness from the Archduchess, while Curtis and Chloe Ambrose stand imposing over him. The maids and butlers watch, stunned, as Philip Deltang endures the humiliation of prostrating himself. Chloe Ambrose, leaning on Curtis, casually states that it's unfortunate but can't be helped and she'll let this one go. Chloe Ambrose leans over a terrified Philip Deltang, warning him to keep in mind that a bullet might reach him before he can even bow his head. Chloe Ambrose smiles, accepting Philip Deltang's deepest apologies and declaring he will receive a light punishment as a form of reflection. Chloe Ambrose cheerfully flashes a peace sign as Philip Deltang, unseen, reacts in shock, asking if he has to endure this for 3 hours. Chloe Ambrose, declaring she's starving, dismisses everyone and asks for dinner, leaving Philip Deltang in a headstand wondering if they are really leaving him. Philip Deltang remains in a headstand on the Grand Palace floor as maids walk away, leaving him. Philip Deltang continues his headstand on the Grand Palace floor, now mostly empty of servants. Philip Deltang remains in a headstand in the vast, empty hall, with a large, questioning, seriously text expressing his disbelief. The magnificent palace is seen at night, with a thought bubble conveying a feeling of refreshment. Chloe Ambrose smiles happily, enjoying a luxurious meal and wine, finding the food delicious. Chloe Ambrose sips wine contentedly during dinner, while Curtis, unseen, questions if she is satisfied. Chloe Ambrose confirms her overwhelming work stress has vanished, and Curtis adds that she can enjoy herself with the king's lackeys, but warns that things will get much worse. Chloe Ambrose looks concerned as Curtis explains their current space is cramped and offers a larger room in the West Wing where his mother lived, but advises against it. Curtis smiles knowingly, explaining the mansion lacks secret passages and is unsuitable for royalty, suggesting the king intentionally placed him in such a vulnerable location. Curtis, smiling, asks Chloe Ambrose if it would be easier to jump from the 2nd floor instead of the 3rd if a mysterious fire occurred in her room, causing her to exclaim her stress. Chloe Ambrose looks wide-eyed and horrified as she realizes Curtis has prepared everything for their first night of marriage. A grinning moon floats outside the palace at night, making a taralala ha-ha-ha sound as a thought bubble declares this is their first night. Chloe Ambrose, in a delicate nightgown, stands next to Curtis, who wears a robe, as she observes the seemingly barren room. Chloe Ambrose looks displeased in her nightgown, internally lamenting that she has to live in such a place from now on. Curtis, in a dark blue robe, addresses Chloe Ambrose, who stands in a light pink nightgown holding a wine glass, as your grace. Chloe Ambrose looks at Curtis with a questioning expression, while Curtis smiles knowingly. Curtis, surrounded by red roses, smiles smugly, thinking about a woman stepping into his bedroom. Chloe Ambrose looks unamused as a red alarm light flashes and text warns of bullshit detected. Chloe Ambrose's internal monologue declares a, quote, bullshit speaker should be executed by firing squad. Then she looks panicked, frantically patting her waist as she realizes she has no gun. Curtis laughs mischievously, asking if Chloe Ambrose was looking for a gun, and then teases that she is fun to tease, much to her obvious annoyance. Curtis smiles with a closed eye, pleased that this was the reaction he desired, affirming this is how it should be. Chloe Ambrose recalls the distance earlier while standing formally beside Curtis, both looking serious. Chloe Ambrose recalls the impulsive gift as Curtis formally presents her with a gift, both in ceremonial attire. Chloe Ambrose recalls even the kiss as she and Curtis share a passionate embrace. A hand taps a chair as an unseen speaker questions if one shouldn't be glad their husband isn't a stiff man clinging to premarital purity. Chloe Ambrose, sitting opposite Curtis at a table, defiantly states there's nothing to be glad about, certain her oh-so-honorable husband will remain pure after marriage. Chloe Ambrose looks thoughtfully ahead, a faint blush on her face, deep in contemplation. Curtis, with a subtle smirk, touches Chloe Ambrose's shoulder, questioning if she is truly certain about her statement. Chloe Ambrose turns her head slightly away, a blush visible on her cheek indicating a hint of discomfort or shyness. Curtis and Chloe Ambrose sit at a small table in a grand, sunlit room, bathed in bright light. Curtis's purple eyes narrow intensely as he raises a finger to his lips, lost in thought. Curtis, looking at Chloe Ambrose, states he trusts her grace. Curtis looks surprised and confused as Chloe Ambrose declares she trusts his inhumanity more than his humanity. Chloe Ambrose angrily criticizes Curtis for being extraordinarily shameless, citing his actions of overworking her and proposing a contract marriage after only 3 months. Curtis, with a subtle smile, warns Chloe Ambrose that her corpse will be buried in Glitland. Curtis looks frustrated, covering his face, as Chloe Ambrose, with a sinister smile, declares that if he insists on ruining things, producing an heir will be impossible. Chloe Ambrose dramatically bursts through a window, exclaiming, "Freedom!" threatening to jump to escape if forced to produce an heir. Chloe Ambrose looks calm but serious, imagining the beautiful rumor of an archduchess jumping out a window on her wedding night and how the king will surely hear of it. Curtis covers his face in distress at the dining table, while Chloe Ambrose, with a sinister smile, threatens to sell him, the rapist, and his noble title to the king, to which Curtis firmly rejects her plan. Chloe Ambrose stands up, stating she's going to sleep and bids Curtis good night, leaving him confused and questioning her actions. Chloe Ambrose looks determined, thinking it is now time to reward that trust. Curtis smiles confidently, gesturing towards a massive pile of documents, and declares, "Work." Chloe Ambrose thinks about Curtis holding grudges like a lunatic, her thoughts depicted above a night scene of the palace. Chloe Ambrose closes her eyes, a single tear falling, as a grand palace is beautifully illuminated under the night sky, reflecting a serene yet poignant moment. A stylized red sun shines brightly against a clear blue sky, signifying the beginning of a new day. Chloe Ambrose lies slumped on the dining table, utterly exhausted and groaning, with a plate of food remaining before her. An auburn-haired woman looks shocked, covering her mouth, as she observes Chloe Ambrose's exhausted state, exclaiming, "Oh my!" Curtis smiles, admitting he won't deny that Chloe Ambrose hit the jackpot marrying him, praising her as a hard-working wife and a blessing, while Chloe silently eats. A hand extends a plate of strawberry tarts to Chloe Ambrose, who looks at them with a slight look of surprise. Curtis questions if Chloe Ambrose is hurt, then suggests she should drop the stiff formalities to avoid rumors about them speaking formally even in bed. Chloe Ambrose looks annoyed, thinking Curtis is being difficult despite her worries, agreeing that his previous point about formalities is not wrong. Chloe Ambrose gazes intently at the strawberry tarts, deep in thought. Chloe Ambrose tentatively calls Curtis husband, then shivers, finding the term chilling, while Curtis, amused, labels tyrannical husband an interesting new term. Curtis states there is plenty of work awaiting, not just checking for poison, while holding a fork to his chin. Curtis explains she needs to prepare for another diplomatic banquet, deflect the king's attacks, and write thank-you letters for wedding gifts, specifically mentioning one from Isabel Glitland, as a hand touches an ornate green vase. Chloe Ambrose looks at the ornate green vase, musing that perhaps its plainness is why it's considered cheap. Chloe Ambrose asks if she can report to the guards and then write the letters, but Curtis questions if she's already going back to work and suggests she should rest longer. Chibi Chloe Ambrose admits she has no eye for luxury items and asks if she can just buy whatever catches her attention. Chloe Ambrose is told to buy whatever catches her eye to develop her taste, with Papatane Street, Ivaness's biggest luxury shopping district, being mentioned, leading her to question if he's truly letting her go wild. Chloe Ambroise laughs, asking if she can bankrupt the Archduchy, to which Curtis confidently replies, "Think you can?" Curtis smiles smugly, remarking that the thought is incredibly annoying but true. Chloe Ambroise stares wide-eyed and shocked, gasping in surprise. Chloe Ambroise and the reddish-brown-haired man look up in horror at a white-draped object floating above them, with Chloe exclaiming, "What the hell is that?" Chloe Ambroise looks utterly horrified, realizing that her trust in his inhumanity has now been fully confirmed. A promotional image displays a chibi, purple-haired character, encouraging readers to visit a website for more exciting manga series and announcing recruitment for various positions. A grand mansion stands under a clear sky as a voice laments, "Wah!" and questions, "What should I do, Aunt?" Agathe Monfisi, a brown-haired woman, cries out in distress, lamenting that he got married without her and calling him a cold-hearted Archduke. Flandre Marquis, the king's sister and Curtis's older sister, fans herself elegantly, thinking about how long the other woman intends to keep crying. A dark-haired man apologizes to Flandre, explaining that the ice from the royal palace has not yet arrived and promises to send someone again, while Agathe continues to cry in the background. Flandre, looking slightly annoyed, sips her tea, deciding she'll simply drink it as she doesn't need to show off with that stupid chunk of ice. Agathe, drying her tears, questions Flandre, who calmly states that the king seems busy with his work. A close-up shows Flandre's red eyes narrowed, reflecting deep thought or perhaps concealed frustration. A hand holds a newspaper reporting on a bedsheet hanging from the Archduchy's terrace, questioning if it's a royal family tradition, while a thought bubble expresses concern about siding with Curtis. A newspaper rests on a table as a thought bubble attributes her discomfort to heat intolerance and questions what can be done about the National Property Ice Warehouse. Agathe gazes with wide-eyed admiration at an ornate green vase, exclaiming that it's beautiful and luxurious. Flandre questions Agathe about something troublesome, to which Agathe dismissively replies that it's nothing too serious. Agathe reacts with an exasperated cry, demanding to know how Flandre could say that when she knows how much Agathe liked Archduke Berg. Flandre, fanning herself, suggests Agathe should stop clinging to Curtis after all the humiliation she endured, but Agathe insists she's been quiet since then. Agathe proudly declares she joined the royal guard, prompting a thought bubble to question if a woman chasing unrequited love into her future can truly be called staying quiet. Agathe fumes, lamenting that her older brother didn't help and even gave the other girl the flame of divinity, believing that girl should reflect on why even the shrewd Noelle didn't help. Flandre smiles with closed eyes, thinking that her own peace of mind will be enhanced this way. Agathe emphatically declares that she will buy much better jewels than the divine flame of divinity. Agathe asks Flandre if their ancestors sold the flame of divinity, and Flandre, with a knowing smile, agrees, suggesting they must now possess something even better. Agathe joyfully exclaims her excitement to her aunt while standing before the grand building. Chloe Ambroise and the king stare in horror at a white-draped object, like a bedsheet hanging from the palace, with Chloe exclaiming, "What the hell is that?" The king looks uneasy, questioning the era for such an act and if Chloe is comfortable with it. Chloe Ambroise's eyes widen in utter horror as she realizes her trust in the king's inhumanity has been completely confirmed. The king, holding Chloe Ambroise's hand, questions if she thought he would be satisfied with merely a wedding certificate. Curtis stands formally in his white and blue uniform, adorned with a purple medal and gold chains, amidst a lush outdoor setting. Curtis holds Chloe Ambroise's hand, thinking he doesn't care if she gets hurt and she can do whatever she wants, but questions if it's strange to use her own blood. Chloe Ambroise looks shocked and uncomfortable as she processes the unsettling idea of using her own blood. Curtis appears surprised and confused by the situation. Chloe Ambroise looks at Curtis with a questioning expression, asking if she needs to gain impulses. Curtis covers his face in distress, speaking of impulses, as he appears overwhelmed. Chloe Ambroise and Curtis stand formally side by side in a grand, ethereal hall, with a narration stating their marriage was forced by the king's will. Curtis smiles subtly, exuding confidence. Curtis looks over his shoulder, his back to the viewer, as he walks outdoors in his uniform. Curtis introduces Lieutenant Dubois, an auburn-haired man, as today's assigned guard, who bows and declares he will serve as the Archduke's guard. Chloe Ambroise's internal monologue observes that Lieutenant Dubois' expression is not his usual, and that there's a sneer in his eyes when he looks at her. A close-up reveals Lieutenant Dubois' green eyes, confirming a subtle sneer. Chloe Ambroise and Lieutenant Dubois stand side by side on a balcony, both looking forward, Chloe appearing somewhat apprehensive. Chloe Ambroise smiles faintly, her eyes wide, seemingly trying to maintain composure. Chloe Ambroise looks awkward, questioning why Lieutenant Dubois needs to guard her for a personal errand, worrying about having to explain love stuff to him. Curtis smiles, explaining that he assigned Lieutenant Dubois precisely because Chloe Ambroise is his precious wife. Chloe Ambroise reacts with an intensely angry and disgusted expression, her face contorted in a furious grimace. Chloe Ambroise gazes at the distant palace, resignedly stating, "Understood." A young blonde girl excitedly points out a cookie shop from a window with Chloe Ambroise and the king. The king formally addresses Chloe Ambroise as Your Grace, despite her protest, stating he cannot stop. Chloe Ambroise smiles subtly, looking away with a thoughtful expression. A stylized thought bubble declares that years of friendship don't simply vanish overnight, with a smaller thought praising a frown. Chloe Ambroise forces a tearful smile, surrounded by reveling friends who are drinking and teasing her about hating Curtis Berg. Chloe Ambroise looks away, her expression thoughtful and slightly melancholic amidst the revelry. Chloe Ambroise, the young blonde girl, and a purple-haired woman sit on a red couch, while the king sits opposite them. The king, sitting on a red couch, looks at Chloe Ambroise and asks her to step down. Chloe Ambroise looks visibly shocked, her pink eyes wide with distress. Lieutenant Dubois, surprised, opens the door and begins to formally address Chloe Ambroise as she walks past him. Chloe Ambroise continues to walk, looking contemplative, as someone urgently calls out her title, Her Grace the Archduchess. Chloe Ambroise turns, her pink eyes wide with surprise, questioning what she just heard. A large crowd of reporters swarms Chloe Ambroise and Lieutenant Dubois, excitedly hailing her and questioning if she came alone, while Chloe Ambroise reacts with surprise. Overwhelmed, Chloe Ambroise is barraged by reporters asking where she is going, confirming Lieutenant Ezra Dubois as her escort, and questioning the meaning of the bedsheet, making her realize she's being followed. The eager crowd continues to call out to Her Grace the Archduchess, and question her solitary presence, reinforcing the chaotic scene. Reporters persist in questioning Chloe Ambroise about her destination and the mysterious bedsheet, intensifying her horror and confirming her realization that she is being pursued. A grand mansion stands prominently, surrounded by a large gathering crowd, indicating the destination of the frantic rush. Chloe Ambroise, accompanied by Lieutenant Dubois and the light blonde-haired young girl, finally arrives, catching her breath and expressing surprise at the unexpected swarm of reporters. A graceful, dark, green-haired woman, adorned with elaborate jewelry, smiles welcomingly as she is identified from the Bassireur Baronetcy. The dark, green-haired woman extends her hand in greeting, prompting Chloe Ambroise to internally question the propriety of a woman kissing another woman's hand. Chibi Chloe Ambroise, surrounded by swirling formulas, frantically brainstorms how to maintain her dignity, questioning if the custom is allowed despite the other woman's noble title. Lieutenant Dubois interjects, explaining that the hand-kissing gesture is not permitted for security reasons, to which the dark green-haired woman politely apologizes for her oversight. The dark green-haired woman, holding a purple jeweled pendant, confesses that she truly just wanted to see the famed Flame of Divinity once more. The Flame of Divinity, a magnificent gold ring with a sparkling purple jewel, is showcased in a close-up against a soft floral background. The dark green-haired woman laughs with pride at the sparkling jewel, prompting Chloe Ambroise to realize the woman's intense love for jewelry, even to the point of wanting to kiss her hand. The dark green-haired woman offers to escort Chloe Ambroise to the second floor, warning about stairs, but Chloe Ambroise, after thanking her, asks for her identity. Realizing her lapse, the dark green-haired woman introduces Camille Bassireur, her younger sister who is currently working on craftsmanship projects on the third floor. Chloe Ambrose and the light blonde-haired young girl gaze in awe at a room sparkling with lavish jewelry, the young girl exclaiming in wonder. The light blonde-haired young girl continues to exclaim about the jewelry's sparkle, delighting the dark green-haired woman, while Chloe Ambrose appears slightly overwhelmed. The dark green-haired woman apologizes for her delayed greeting, explaining she was surprised by a morning notice, then invites Chloe Ambrose to sit, who begins to explain her situation. Chloe Ambrose confesses her lack of an eye for jewelry and her desire to view everything from low to high end, surprising the dark green-haired woman, who questions her intent. Chloe Ambrose explains her need to examine lower quality items to develop her taste, then asks if they deal with such products, to which the slightly uncomfortable dark green-haired woman admits they focus on high-end pieces. The auburn-haired woman advises Chloe Ambrose that simply browsing will sharpen her eye, suggesting they begin, a point Chloe Ambrose internally acknowledges as correct. A lavish display of rings and bracelets sparkles as an unseen speaker proudly offers to showcase all of Bassurur's unique and high-quality items. Chloe Ambrose smiles faintly, finding a small jewelry piece pretty, prompting the dark green-haired woman to begin its detailed history. The dark green-haired woman passionately recounts the dramatic history of a ruby necklace, leading Chloe Ambrose to internally label her a total jewelry nerd due to the extensive information. A display of exquisite jewelry is accompanied by the thought that high-caliber items ultimately come down to personal taste, with no single best piece if the owner dislikes it. The dark green-haired woman asks Chloe Ambrose if anything caught her eye, to which Chloe Ambrose, holding a jewelry box, admits she's unsure, despite finding it pretty. The dark green-haired woman smiles reassuringly, telling Chloe Ambrose that her initial uncertainty about jewelry is quite normal. The dark green-haired woman suggests choosing jewelry based on preferred colors, but Chloe Ambrose looks thoughtful and hesitant, beginning to reply, "But..." The dark green-haired woman smiles knowingly, a subtle expression on her face. Chloe Ambrose, eyes closed in resignation, internally acknowledges her stinginess regarding luxury spending despite her Archduchess title. Chibi Chloe Ambrose comically exclaims her exasperation, calling jewelry just rocks that aren't necessities, finding spending millions on shiny stones utterly beyond her understanding. The auburn-haired woman gently reminds Chloe Ambrose that a few jewelry pieces are necessary for banquets, outings, and other uses. Chloe Ambrose closes her eyes with a pained smile, conceding that her practical common sense is incompatible with this extravagant environment. Chloe Ambrose brightly suggests choosing something in a neutral color, but the dark blue-haired woman, Leah, furiously interjects, telling her not to pick neutral colors for jewelry, too. Leah scolds Chloe Ambrose about her wardrobe being full of boring brown, questioning why she'd want brown jewelry even as Archduchess, while Chloe Ambrose defends brown as a neutral color, and the dark green-haired woman looks on amused. Leah angrily shouts at her sister, asserting her right to like brown and declaring her desire to sneak pretty accessories from her wardrobe like their other siblings. Leah, watching with the dark green-haired woman and the auburn-haired woman, continues to push her sister to buy something nice, since there's nothing worth stealing, reminding her the Archduke approved unlimited spending. A thought bubble reveals her sister buys brown in memory of Iris. Lieutenant Dubois and the light blonde-haired young girl stand together, with Lieutenant Dubois nodding in understanding, stating, "I see." The light blonde-haired young girl looks shocked as Chloe Ambrose appears distressed, and Leah, also distressed, shouts, "Hey!" after revealing that Chloe Ambrose's sister considers brown clothes cheap because they don't need dye. The group, including Chloe Ambrose, Leah, Lieutenant Dubois, the dark green-haired woman Camille Bassurur, and the light blonde-haired young girl, gathers around a jewelry display in the opulent room. The dark green-haired woman gasps dramatically, covering her mouth in shock. The dark green-haired woman apologizes, explaining the sisters reminded her of her own childhood, but Camille Bassurur furiously demands her younger sister to kneel and apologize immediately. Camille Bassurur kneels before Chloe Ambrose, profusely apologizing for her thoughtless younger sister's rudeness, but Chloe Ambrose uncomfortably tells her it's fine and asks her to stand. Chloe Ambrose, offering a token, asks Camille Bossirer if she is the artisan of the place, and Camille confirms her role. Camille Bossirer reacts with wide-eyed surprise to Chloe Ambrose's inquiry. The dark, green-haired woman informs Chloe Ambrose that the items are not for sale, to which Chloe Ambrose simply replies, "Is that so?" Chloe Ambrose thinks she likes bigger gems but can't wear flashy items constantly, and also needs pieces for her sisters. Camille Bossirer explains that a particular piece was made by her father and offers to show his collection, surprising Chloe Ambrose. Small, charming jewelry pieces, including necklaces and earrings, are displayed elegantly on a jewelry tray. The light blonde-haired young girl excitedly exclaims about how cute and pretty the heart-shaped jewels are, noting even kids could wear them, while Chloe Ambrose smiles. The dark green-haired woman explains that such cute styles are no longer sold due to policy changes and are too juvenile for noble ladies, but suggests they would suit Camille Bossirer perfectly. Camille Bossirer smiles subtly, with a hint of a blush on her cheeks. The light blonde-haired young girl sitting on Chloe Ambrose's lap points to a princess crown, while Chloe Ambrose expresses that it looks good on her, and the dark green-haired woman reveals it was made for a real princess. The light blonde-haired young girl looks surprised and questions if the crown was truly for a princess. Chloe Ambrose looks at a crown adorned with black opals and questions its age, pointing out that black opals have only been imported for 5 years. Chloe Ambrose further explains her knowledge of black opals, stating she knew because the Navy had to prepare for war over them, leaving the dark green-haired woman looking shocked. Camille Bossirer confesses that she made the piece herself and wasn't trying to deceive Chloe Ambrose, who then understands the situation. Chloe Ambrose, holding the light blonde-haired young girl, asks Camille Bossirer to explain, but Camille apologizes for not wanting to burden her with unnecessary details. Chloe Ambrose sits on a grand staircase, reflecting that this is why people find her intimidating, as Lieutenant Dubois and the light blonde-haired young girl sit below, looking up at her. Chloe Ambrose smiles thoughtfully, considering it a good thing she doesn't work, otherwise she might have caused a scandal unknowingly. Chloe Ambrose states that the situation still feels burdensome, and she should leave, but assures them she's not upset, simply finding this particular piece prettier. Chloe Ambrose expresses regret that the item is not for sale, then internally considers that someone with no taste might like it, while the dark green-haired woman appears slightly annoyed. A light brown-haired woman with blue eyes, wearing a yellow dress, looks shocked and exclaims a name. The light brown-haired woman angrily questions how Chloe Ambrose entered, believing the store should be closed for her Grace's reservation, while Chloe Ambrose looks at a thought bubble depicting a laughing man in uniform who resembles Lieutenant Dubois, wondering if this is the Monfils she knows. The blonde-haired man in uniform trusts Noel brown-haired woman to keep a secret from Agathe, which Noel laughingly agrees to. The blonde-haired man in uniform questions Agathe, and Noel reveals she is his younger sister and has a crush on that bastard, causing Agathe, dark blue-haired woman, to blush and cover her mouth in embarrassment. The blonde-haired man in uniform expresses how unfortunate it is that Agathe doesn't get a signing bonus like Lieutenant Ambrose, and instructs Noel to prepare a fake contract for the Royal Archives. Agathe Montfils' light brown-haired woman confronts Chloe Ambrose, identifying her as the, quote, pitiful girl who's in love with Curtis. Agathe Montfils looks down at Chloe Ambrose with an angry expression. The dark green-haired woman with a nervous smile suggests they talk elsewhere, addressing the light brown-haired woman as Miss Montfils. Agathe Montfils angrily questions why she should leave, demanding to know if Chloe Ambrose is more important than her, while Chloe Ambrose appears surprised. Chloe Ambrose looks intently at Agathe Montfils, repeating her question directly, is she more important than me? Lieutenant Dubois, auburn-haired man in uniform, stands looking perplexed and uncomfortable. Agathe Montfils excitedly greets Lieutenant Dubois, asking if he made the reservation and if he's there to try on engagement rings. Lieutenant Dubois addresses Agathe Montfils as Sergeant, then muses about Montfils and how Second Lieutenant Noel Montfils is a respectable person, while Chloe Ambrose covers her mouth in surprise. Lieutenant Dubois continues to praise Noel Montfils as polite, good at his job, and incredibly considerate, leaving Agathe Montfils confused and questioning his words. Chloe Ambroise reacts with a shocked expression, her finger near her mouth. Agathe Montfils stares intensely at Chloe Ambroise, who subtly moves away. Chloe Ambroise, with a knowing smirk and crossed arms, exudes confidence. Agathe Montfils furiously shouts at Chloe Ambroise, demanding how she could possibly know who she is. Chloe Ambroise smiles slyly, pointing out Agathe's stupidity for not realizing who she is, given the reporters outside and the store staff. Chloe Ambroise continues to call Agathe Montfils stupid, prompting Agathe to react with a frustrated "erg." Agathe Montfils' face is contorted in intense fury, her blue eyes wide with anger. Chloe Ambroise internally dismisses arguing with Agathe Montfils as pointless, realizing she likely just wanted to vent after Chloe ruined her long-standing crush, then formally introduces herself as Chloe LaDavid Berg. Chloe Ambroise looks utterly bewildered, surrounded by question marks, as a voice accuses her of bringing a paramour on her wedding day. Chloe Ambroise questions the term paramour, which is then explicitly defined as an illicit lover. A visual diagram labels Chloe Ambroise and the light blonde-haired young girl as blood relative 1 and blood relative 2, and the dark green-haired woman and the auburn-haired woman as woman she just met and woman she just met too. Chloe Ambroise points dramatically at Lieutenant Dubois, identifying him as the only man here. Lieutenant Dubois sighs, claiming ignorance of what Sergeant Montfils is talking about, while a voice tells him not to play dumb. Chloe Ambroise is visibly shocked as the voice reveals Lieutenant Dubois introduced Lieutenant Ambroise to his family as his future wife, a fact known by everyone in the Guard. The dark green-haired woman and Camille Bassirour in the upper panel, and the auburn-haired woman in the lower panel, all react with expressions of shock and disbelief. Chloe Ambroise covers her face in distress as Lieutenant Dubois looks horrified, while the voice reveals he used Chloe's name because he was too pathetic to tell his mother he didn't want to get married, confirming, yes, it's him. Text describes Ezra Dubois, tired of constant nagging about marriage since adulthood, drowning his frustrations in alcohol, shown above a dark, imposing house at night. Ezra Dubois, surrounded by drinking friends, complains about being forced into marriage meetings, stating he just wants to live freely without responsibility, since his ambitious older sister inherited the title and estate. One friend suggests, that's just how adults are. Ezra Dubois, looking distraught, is told by a laughing friend that his parents are immortal because they won't rest until he's married. Ezra Dubois' friend, George auburn-haired man, proposes a genius idea. Just lie and say he's dating Chloe, leaving Ezra Dubois shocked. The black-haired man questions if marrying Chloe would make Curtis's parents go nuts. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman in uniform, is described as having a family but no other assets, and being a former Navy member. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, is depicted in a wedding dress, labeled as Forbes' one worst bride material by a chibi black-haired man. Several individuals, including a chibi black-haired man, Matthew and Chloe, are gathered around a table filled with food. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, angrily tells someone to shoo and apologizes for their words about Chloe, while a black-haired boy also demands an apology. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, calmly states she is fine, surprising Matthew. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman holding a wooden mug, dismisses a comment about not being taken home, stating she doesn't care and they can do whatever they want. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, the black-haired chibi man, and another chibi black-haired man are seen restraining a dark-haired boy, while a boy with reddish-brown hair holds a hammer. The group continues to restrain the dark-haired boy, all crying and shouting, "Chloe!" A narrative panel states that Ezra's house was turned upside down amidst the chaos. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, flails dramatically, screaming, "No!" and declaring his desire to marry Chloe. Chloe, Leah, and a light brown-haired boy are shown ecstatic, surrounded by numerous gift boxes, as Chloe announces a birthday present for Leah, who exclaims, "Wow!" A narrative confirms Chloe received dozens of boxes of fancy sweets as thanks. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, rubs his head, recalling the delicious sweets, while chibi Chloe and Leah drool. An unseen speaker dismisses the event as a drunken joke to Sergeant Montfils, but a lower voice retorts, Don't lie. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, reflects on how a noblewoman could tarnish her reputation for sweets and admits she agreed to a contract marriage to make her boss kneel, concluding that sweets are better than kneeling. Agatha, the light brown-haired woman in yellow, angrily scolds Matthew, the reddish brown-haired man, for defending Chloe, reminding him she married the Archduke after only 2 months. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, with a slight smile and a pensive expression, acknowledges the headache of how people perceive her now, attempting to explain that she understands Agatha's misunderstanding. Gathi, the light brown-haired woman, interrupts Chloe, sarcastically questioning misunderstand and accusing Chloe of having a paramour from day one of her marriage, asking if Lord Curtis knows about it. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, explains that the Archduke assigned Lieutenant Dubois as her escort, prompting Agatha to HMPH and doubt Curtis knew of Chloe's affair, to which Chloe muses that is likely true. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, sighs, stating she wasn't aware she was committing affair herself, wondering how the Archduke would know, which leaves Agatha exclaiming, "What?" Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, informs Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, that she has 2 more things to say, prompting Agatha to ask what they are. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, with intense, angry eyes, declares that she also has eyes, addressing Agatha as Sergeant Monfils. Matthew, the reddish brown-haired man, tearfully questions what is wrong with him, feeling personally insulted by being paired with him. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, holds up 2 fingers, stating her second point, acknowledging that Agatha doesn't like her. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, asserts her higher military rank as a lieutenant over Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, who then retorts that she is currently on leave. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles, agreeing with Agatha's statement about being the daughter of Count Monfils, then provocatively asks if that makes her the Archduchess of Berg. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, with a triumphant smile, declares her rank to be much higher than Agatha's, while a chibi Agatha looks upset below. Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, acknowledges Chloe as the daughter of Count Monfils, which Chloe confirms, leading Agatha to then question if that makes Chloe the Archduchess of Berg. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles confidently, asserting her rank is way higher than Agatha's, as a chibi Agatha reacts in surprise. Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, shouts in disbelief, questioning who recognizes Chloe as the Archduchess. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, with a smirk, states, "Curtis," adding that she doesn't need Agatha's recognition, as Agatha is neither Ivanese nor Berg. Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, looks distressed and begins to sweat from the confrontation. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, leans in, observing Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, with a questioning look, asking if she is crying. Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, quickly wipes her eye, denying that she is crying. Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, bursts into tears, angrily asking Chloe if she likes the Archduke that much, and if she is trying to rile her up. Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, stares forward with a determined and serious expression. Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, looks surprised, but suggests they should all go their separate ways to accomplish their tasks. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman in what appears to be a jewelry shop, thinks that, according to Agatha's logic, she still outranks her. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, adds that Basirora's Agatha's family shop is past its prime too, causing Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, to look shocked. The dark green-haired woman, the proprietor, apologizes and regrets not selling the family heirlooms long ago, understanding Camille's sentimentality but knowing something like this would happen. Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, smiles confidently, stating they'll have to wait and see if Chloe is truly the most important person there. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks shocked, wondering what this kiddo Agatha is talking about, while Agatha smiles mysteriously and calls out Aunt Mary. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, observes Agatha walking away towards an elegant light brown-haired woman in a dark green dress, realizing that woman is... A regal portrait reveals an elegant, light brown-haired woman, identified as the very top name on the noble list. The elegant, light brown-haired woman in a dark green dress, holding a fan, is dramatically introduced as the king's sister, the Marquis of Flandre. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, realizes with a shock that the Marquis of Flandra's presence explains why Agatha had been strutting around as if she owned the place. A few minutes earlier scene shows an exterior of a grand building, with off-panel voices discussing Miss Monfils' arrival and how the Archduchess made her reservation first, noting the swarming press. Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, addresses a gray-haired man and others, asserting her importance by emphasizing she came with the Marquis of Flandre. Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, grins maliciously, declaring her intention to crush that Archduchess's pride flat. A hand is shown on a staircase as a chibi. Agatha, the light brown-haired woman, runs up, hinting at her plotting. The dark green-haired woman, the proprietor, looking concerned, tells a chibi gray-haired man to call Camille, to which he replies that he understood. The Marquis of Flandre, the light brown-haired woman, apologizes to Camille, the dark green-haired woman, for being in the reserved shop, but Camille reassures her it's fine. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress and the dark green-haired woman watch in confusion as the man in uniform speaks. Curtis, the blonde-haired man in uniform, smiles and clarifies to the brown-haired man in uniform that he wasn't referring to Marquis Flandre. The brown-haired man in uniform laughs nervously, acknowledging that Agatha is just hard to control. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles charmingly, denying that he feels that way. Chibi versions of the brown-haired man, the brown-haired woman in the teal dress, and Chloe Ambrose appear shocked, as an unseen thought questions how the cold-hearted man used such a warm word. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress looks distressed, her red eyes widened, next to an ornate green vase. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles at the brown-haired woman in the teal dress, who fans herself awkwardly. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, walks down a grand staircase arm-in-arm with the brown-haired woman in the teal dress, followed by the brown-haired man in uniform and the dark green-haired woman. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles slyly, shushing the brown-haired woman in the teal dress as she attempts to apologize. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress recounts a story of the auburn-haired man being dumped after 2 months and Chloe Ambrose marrying the Archduke. The brown-haired man in uniform confirms it is a famous story among the guards. Chibi versions of a black-haired boy and an auburn-haired boy appear. As the brown-haired woman in the teal dress explains, the captain pushed the idea, and Lieutenant Dubois went along with it. A hand pulls the hair of a chibi dark blue-haired woman drinking with a chibi auburn-haired man, as the brown-haired woman in the teal dress continues to explain the story. The brown-haired man in uniform looks at Curtis, the blonde-haired man, questioningly, asking if he was the one who did that. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks playful as he asks the brown-haired man if he's docking his pay after he provided an interesting story. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress questions if Lord Curtis wouldn't have known about their affair, to which the blonde-haired man in uniform responds that he guesses that's true. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, thanks the brown-haired man in uniform for stopping him from marrying his sister, asking him to keep it secret from Agatha to avoid more headaches. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress looks shocked as she spots someone, shouting, "Aunt Mary, look here." The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress rushes past the dark blue-haired woman towards the brown-haired woman in the teal dress. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress looks upset, reminding someone not to call her aunt in front of others. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress introduces the dark blue-haired woman, Chloe LaDavid Berg. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress remarks that Chloe Ambrose is the Archduchess who married yesterday, criticizing her lack of noble etiquette after being in the army. Chloe Ambrose looks downcast, reflecting that she should have seen this coming when Agatha started acting up, and apologizes, promising to do better. The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress points excitedly, making a sound, as the brown-haired woman in the teal dress fans herself. The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress smiles, asserting that by her logic she must be cheap too, shocking the brown-haired woman in the teal dress. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress embraces the brown-haired woman in the yellow dress, who looks surprised. The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress looks distressed, covering her mouth in shock. The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress gasps in surprise, seeing Curtis and the brown-haired man in uniform. The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress looks surprised and asks for a pardon. The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress exclaims in shock at seeing Curtis as well. A display of jewelry, including a tiara in a red box, is shown, as a voice confirms that items, quote, are mixed in with them. Chloe Ambrose realizes this is why Basarur did not want to show her those items. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress observes the gray-haired young girl, who glances curiously at the scene. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress fans herself, while the dark blue-haired woman, Chloe Ambrose, smiles, holding the gray-haired young girl. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress smiles subtly, her eyes closed in contentment. The gray-haired woman smiles warmly, standing with her hands clasped. Curtis, the blonde-haired man in uniform, converses with the gray-haired woman and the brown-haired woman in the teal dress. Chloe Ambrose and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stand smiling together amidst a floral background. The brown-haired woman in the teal dress fans herself, smirking coyly. Chloe Ambrose looks surprised as the brown-haired woman in the teal dress shouts Curtis. The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress frantically denies something to Curtis, the blonde-haired man. Chloe Ambrose and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stand close together, smiling, with hearts and flowers in the background. The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress angrily questions how Curtis could marry such a woman, leaving her behind. The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress looks visibly upset, her eyes wide with hurt. The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress confronts Curtis, the blonde-haired man, while Chloe Ambrose stands behind him, looking unimpressed. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks seriously, explaining that his marriage wasn't about leaving her, nor does social standing dictate affection. The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress looks upset, questioning Curtis about the royal guard. Curtis, the blonde-haired man with purple eyes, looks sternly, asking who told her to join. The brown-haired woman in the yellow dress looks tearful and distressed. Flandre Marquise fans herself with a distressed expression, while Agathe Monfils stands with her head bowed. Curtis gently comforts Agatha Monfils, while an unseen speaker offers to take care of the immature child since Warrant Officer Dubois is present, which Curtis approves with an all right. Agatha Monfils weeps dramatically in the foreground, as Flandre Marquise, Chloe Ambrose, and Curtis stand together in the background. An auburn-haired woman and a purple-haired woman bow politely with hands clasped. Curtis and Flandre Marquise face each other, with Curtis remarking that it would have been more problematic if she had known, and Flandre Marquise noting his bluntness and lack of affection. Chloe Ambrose and Leah perform a deep bow with Iris, as Chloe introduces them as Leah and Iris. Iris, a young gray-haired girl, looks wide-eyed while wearing a tiara. A chibi Chloe Ambrose explains that Iris resembles their mother's side of the family, while Leah and Chloe take after their father's side. A chibi Flandre Marquise apologizes for her impertinence. Flandre Marquise offers Chloe Ambrose the tiara Iris is wearing as an apology, but Chloe quickly and politely declines the gift. Curtis, embracing Chloe Ambrose, remarks that it's her first day as a newlywed, and asks to allow his wife to save face. Flandre Marquise looks annoyed, fanning herself with a sly expression. Curtis and Chloe Ambrose relax at a table filled with sweets, with Curtis commenting that they finally have a moment to breathe. A chibi Chloe Ambrose happily eats a sweet from a stick, exclaiming that it's delicious. Flandre Marquise states that the Eleanor Society meeting will be held soon for the first time in a while and advises Curtis to have his wife prepare, mentioning she owes him a favor from today. Chloe Ambrose, while eating, asks Curtis if he has ever participated in the Eleanor Society meeting. Chloe Ambrose looks exasperated and questions the situation with a sigh. Chibi Chloe Ambrose and Curtis discuss that Chloe will most likely have to host the Eleanor Society meeting, not just join it. A close-up of Curtis's purple eye shows a serious expression. Agatha Monfils appears distressed, as an unseen thought anticipates an attack similar to Miss Monfils from today. Chloe Ambrose, still eating, internally laments that this whole situation is going to be another headache. Curtis smiles subtly, looking pleased. A close-up shows Chloe Ambrose looking annoyed with narrowed pink eyes. Chloe Ambrose, with a sweet in her mouth, questions Curtis why he wouldn't look at her, as he gazes intently at her. Curtis looks surprised and flustered, asking if he was smiling. Chloe Ambrose questions if Curtis wasn't smiling, to which he adamantly denies it and asks what she takes him for, looking annoyed. Chloe Ambrose smiles warmly at Philip Deltang, who looks surprised. Philip Deltang explains that sending ice cream in ice packages is possible, but expensive and incurs significant costs, apologizing for his frankness to Her Highness, the Grand Duchess. Chloe Ambry looks wide-eyed and leans towards Curtis, who looks intently at her. Chloe Ambroise whispers to Curtis, who maintains a stoic expression. Chloe Ambroise whispers closely to Curtis's ear, his purple eye visible. Chloe Ambroise whispers to Curtis, who listens attentively while she covers her mouth with her hand. Chloe Ambroise whispers something, prompting a surprised Curtis to ask, "What?" A close-up of Chloe Ambroise shows her touching her mouth in surprise and slight concern. Chloe Ambroise stands next to Curtis, who looks over his shoulder with a slight frown. Chloe Ambrose whispers to Curtis, asking if she can send the ice cream to Marchioness Flandre, which surprises Curtis, who asks if it's not for her to eat. A chibi Flandre Marquis fans herself with a flustered expression, noting she's sensitive to the heat and indebted to her, as a voice confirms it's fine to send the ice cream. Chloe Ambrose points to the brown-haired man Philip Deltang, asking what he means by "as much as you possibly can." Philip Deltang clarifies that enough for all the servants should be sent, and assures them that the Marchioness's house has an ice cellar for storage, which Curtis confirms. Chloe Ambrose, standing close to Curtis, asks if speaking while standing is ill-mannered, causing Curtis to look flustered as he attempts to deny it. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks thoughtful and slightly bothered, touching his chin. Curtis instructs Chloe Ambrose to sit properly, while she again questions if standing like this is rude, to which Curtis repeats his denial. Chloe Ambrose smiles slightly, asking if she smells. Chloe Ambrose suggests her scent is probably just Julia's perfume, while Curtis, looking subtly annoyed, confirms that her smell is part of it. Chloe Ambrose internally calls Curtis a germaphobe, questioning how they shared a bed and thinking he's a strange guy while looking irritated. Chloe Ambrose considers repaying a favor, noting her sister didn't receive much when moving out, but feels clothes or jewelry would be too obvious a bribe and unsuitable for a princess's refined taste. Chloe Ambrose reflects on her desire for them to enjoy all the ice cream they couldn't eat today because of her. Chloe Ambrose clarifies that ice is just needed to keep the ice cream from melting, as Curtis observes her. Curtis smiles, expressing gratitude and offering future help, while Philip Deltang confirms he will sort out the gold coins, and two other brown-haired women in the background also thank them. Chloe Ambrose reveals that Curtis ordered $1.2 billion in cash for everything she touched, prompting a servant to enthusiastically agree. Chloe Ambrose clutches her head, lamenting having bought half of Camille's collection in addition to her own accessories. Curtis asks Chloe if she dislikes the items, but she denies it, stating they are great, prompting him to question her unhappy expression. Curtis subtly smirks with a confident, almost mischievous glint in his purple eyes, gently touching his cheek amidst glowing yellow flowers. Chloe Ambrose offers a faint smile while Curtis, in a thought bubble, interprets her expression as disliking him. Chloe Ambrose explains her discomfort isn't about Curtis, but that his demand to buy everything she touched for $1.2 billion in cash was wasteful and absurd. Curtis assures Chloe that the items are all hers, stating he won't ask for them back even if they divorce, which greatly shocks her. Chloe Ambrose dramatically declares she will waste the funds thoroughly, while Curtis chuckles, pleased she quickly understood his intentions. Curtis suggests they go get new clothes for Chloe that actually fit, a suggestion she welcomes as the current ones were honestly uncomfortable. Curtis gazes down at Chloe Ambrose with a gentle, knowing smile as she looks away slightly, her expression soft. Chloe Ambrose looks directly forward with a sly smirk and sparkling red eyes, hinting at her satisfaction or playful scheme. Chloe Ambrose expresses her preference for boots over stiff shoes, desiring pigskin lining and low heels, which an unseen speaker praises as distinct taste. Chloe Ambrose tries on a hat with the auburn-haired man, deciding hats don't suit her and preferring a variety of hair accessories instead. Curtis observes Chloe, thinking she looks like she's genuinely enjoying herself as she discusses hat designs, requesting a short brim and simple style. Curtis reflects that Chloe's current enjoyment is, quote, totally different from her prior apathy at the jeweler, thinking about ordering clothes for Leah and Iris for school. Chloe Ambrose thinks about only wearing a uniform, which drew her to the military, and how Iris stands out, with neighbors finding her adorable, yet the outside world is harsh and schools rejected her. Chloe Ambrose resolves to at least dress Iris well so no one looks down on her, while Curtis sips his tea thoughtfully. Chloe Ambrose, now wearing a light green dress, looks at Curtis with a confused expression, asking what? Chloe Ambrose questions Curtis about her younger siblings living with a married sister, stating it's not typical for nobles, while Curtis insists a ducal house can easily provide a tutor. Chloe Ambrose smiles faintly, noting that it's uncommon for younger siblings to live with a married sister, regardless of noble status. Curtis agrees with her statement, as Chloe Ambrose reflects on having worked hard to raise her siblings on a small salary and her relief that Eric didn't need new clothes. Curtis makes a soft TSK sound, contemplating the modest amount Chloe mentioned for her past salary. Chloe Ambrose selects a blue fabric from the blonde-haired woman, and Curtis encourages her choice, commenting on the fabric's quality. The blonde-haired woman praises Chloe's excellent eye, revealing the chosen fabric comes from Toei, causing Chloe to gasp in shock, realizing its name alone doubles the price. Curtis instructs them to use the entire roll of fabric for Chloe because it suits her, which makes Chloe react with extreme, wide-eyed shock, exclaiming, "What?" Chloe Ambrose, looking distressed, acknowledges her earlier challenge to show him true wasting, as Curtis, amused, asks why she is so shocked now. The blonde-haired woman enthusiastically praises Chloe's tall and slender figure, assuring her the fabric will look stunning. The blonde-haired woman shows Chloe Ambrose a sketch design for a dress, detailing how it will be cut long with elegantly draped sleeves, which Chloe seems to consider. Curtis subtly smiles to himself, observing Chloe from his seat at a table filled with sweets. Curtis smiles, contemplating Chloe's genuine happiness and finding it amusing how different she looks compared to her previous uniform. Chloe Ambrose smiles brightly with sparkling pink eyes, thinking Curtis must have imagined her trying on clothes countless times while ordering for her sisters, considering what would suit her. Curtis reflects that Chloe probably gave up her own needs without regret throughout her life. Chloe Ambrose smiles mischievously, touching her lips with a playful glint in her pink eyes. Chloe Ambrose confidently hands a paper to a surprised Curtis. Chloe Ambrose winks mischievously, asking Curtis what he thinks, and declaring she has now shown him real wasting. Curtis holds the paper, looking pleased with a subtle smile. Chloe Ambrose stands proudly, exclaiming her knowledge of spending on clothes, then pivots to realizing she should buy a house, while Curtis reads the paper. Curtis, looking surprised, suggests Chloe sell her family's old house. Chloe Ambrose reflects that moving is dangerous for her Duchess family to live on a busy street, prioritizing safety over clothes and jewelry, agreeing with the idea of moving. Curtis insists on a temporary move but firmly states they are not selling the family house, prompting Chloe to question his reasoning. Chloe Ambrose stands with her back mostly to the viewer, looking slightly distressed in what appears to be a changing room. Curtis maintains a serious and unreadable expression, a close-up on his uniform and jawline highlighting his stern demeanor. Curtis explains that living in an ex-husband's house after divorce would be ridiculous, implicitly stating why they shouldn't sell Chloe's family home. Curtis looks intently, his expression unreadable, a close-up on his uniform collar. Curtis looks thoughtful, his gaze slightly averted, a close-up on his uniform. Curtis sits on a green couch while Chloe Ambrose stands in front of a large mirror, looking at her reflection. Chloe Ambrose, looking annoyed, internally wonders if Curtis has stopped talking because he is already getting bored. Chloe Ambrose, with a tear in her eye, speculates that Curtis probably never had to wait for a woman to shop for clothes before. Chloe Ambrose stands formally in front of a mirror, elegantly dressed in a light green gown, her reflection visible. Chloe Ambrose internally admits that despite the clothes being expensive and nice, they still feel awkward, shown in a close-up of her hand. Chloe Ambrose looks at her reflection, feeling the dress doesn't suit her, but Curtis, standing beside her, asserts that it does and tells her to stop staring at the mirror. Chloe Ambrose looks at her reflection in the mirror, wearing a new light green gown with pink floral accents and a delicate choker. Chloe Ambrose looks thoughtfully to the side while Curtis, the blonde-haired man, sits at a table, resting his head on his hand with a bored expression. A close-up shows Curtis's gloved hand resting under his chin, highlighting his elegant uniform and purple medal. Curtis looks over his shoulder at Chloe Ambroise, who is admiring herself in the mirror, now adorned with a white floral headpiece. Curtis looks surprised as he thinks, "Did I hear that right?" While Chloe Ambroise continues to examine her reflection. Chloe Ambroise smiles faintly with closed eyes, seemingly pleased with her new dress. Chloe Ambroise admires her reflection, playfully lifting her skirt and thinking that despite being pretty and comfortable, the new style feels awkward as she's never worn it before. A chibi Chloe Ambroise with exasperation contemplates the extensive bill, noting an endless parade of zeros on a document displaying 10 million. Chloe Ambroise, now wearing a ruffled white and blue dress, confidently declares the amount to be nothing and decides she should also buy a house, as Curtis observes from his table. Chloe Ambroise holds a paper, internally acknowledging that such expenses are trivial for Curtis, but reminds herself not to get used to it as it's beyond her own means. Chloe Ambroise and Curtis stand illuminated on a stage before an audience, with Chloe reflecting that she is not truly the Grand Duchess and their marriage is merely a play. Chloe Ambroise, wearing a red cloak over a white dress, looks away with a serious expression, pondering her return to her true self. Chloe Ambroise in her military uniform walks down a grand hallway, thinking she doesn't want to be the only one feeling shabby as indistinct figures watch her. A luxurious, horse-drawn carriage clatters along a path surrounded by lush greenery. Curtis looks thoughtful with a subtle smirk as a thought bubble above him questions why Chloe Ambroise is so confused when he looks the same as usual. Chloe Ambroise looks at Curtis, reflecting that he somehow managed to pull off the being the Grand Duchess act today, but she knows she can't maintain it every time. Chloe Ambroise, seated opposite Curtis in the carriage, questions if he's evaluating her work and thinks that's why he sent her siblings, prompting Curtis to make a soft text sound. Curtis, looking serious, tells Chloe Ambroise that the people they will encounter in society from now on won't all be as easy as Agatha. Curtis thinks it will be especially difficult for a woman, while Chloe Ambroise, in a multi-panel thought, questions if he's talking like he lived as a woman and suggests he can badmouth men too if he has complaints. Chloe Ambroise smiles slyly at Curtis, asking, "Huh?" Chloe Ambroise, with a hand to her mouth, realizes Curtis heard her thoughts and says, "Ah, so you heard." Chloe Ambroise laughs, playfully asserting that what she said isn't even something people would gossip about. Curtis looks thoughtful with crossed arms, his expression unreadable. A chibi Chloe Ambroise looks annoyed, questioning, "What nonsense?" A chibi Chloe Ambroise looks pitiful while a chibi Curtis looks annoyed, with Chloe stating he wouldn't know since he's a loner, finding his thoughts unpleasant. A large house is shown, with Chloe Ambroise's thought bubble above it lamenting working with a guy who doesn't even have friends, and wondering if she should get a friendship bonus. A horse-drawn carriage dramatically speeds through a bustling city street, accompanied by the sound HWAAA. Ezra Dubois, the brown-haired man in uniform, comforts Agathe Monthais, the light brown-haired woman, as he tells her that he knew a woman would be the adjutant, but she failed to get the position, lamenting that she dropped him. Ezra Dubois looks distraught while Agathe Monthais cries, saying she can't even sleep because he won't get married and she should take medicine, then yells, "Don't call it humiliation." Agathe Monthais, upset and crying, says it's unfair because she loves Curtis so much but feels her heart can't even reach the tips of his toes. Agathe Monthais, in a yellow dress, stands looking at Chloe Ambroise, who is wearing a dark, elegant dress in a grand room with display cases. A close-up shows Agathe Monthais' face, with tears in her blue eyes and a distressed expression. Chloe Ambroise, wearing a black lace and ribbon top, looks intently forward with glowing pink eyes. Ezra Dubois, looking distraught, tells Agathe Monthais to just let go, stating that Curtis has no feelings for her. Agathe Monthais shouts, "Don't call it humiliation." As Ezra Dubois reminds her, she knew Curtis had no feelings for her 3 years ago, even after being humiliated. Agathe Monthais runs frantically away from a departing carriage and Ezra Dubois, who calls her name while she thinks, "I was serious." Agathe Monthais runs through a town street, looking distressed and thinking, "I hate everyone." Agathe Monthais reflects on her brother Ezra bringing up the past, Chloe Ambroise marrying the Grand Duke without liking him, and her mom pushing her to marry without understanding her. Curtis looks straight ahead with a stern expression, his purple eyes fixed. Agatha Montfils cries out, "I hate them all," then defiantly states, "HMPH. As if I'd ever marry some nobody." Agatha Montfils finds herself in a shadowy, unfamiliar street, confused and asking, "Where is this?" after her outburst. Agatha Montfils looks startled and upset, realizing she walked wherever her feet took her and ended up in, quote, shady place. Agatha Montfils, looking determined, decides her troubled heart is more important than her current location, thinking she should ask her brother if Curtis truly considered her a candidate for Grand Duchess. An exterior shot displays a magnificent, sprawling palace with blue domes under a clear sky. Chloe Ambroise lies on a purple bedspread, surrounded by sweets, looking relaxed and smiling. Chloe Ambroise smiles widely, holding a lollipop in her mouth and making a playful hand gesture, surrounded by cakes and a pink border. Chloe Ambroise smiles peacefully with closed eyes, lying on a bed. An exterior view of the Grand Palace is shown, with a caption stating, "Just as Chloe predicted." Text panels describe that after the honeymoon, work was anything but peaceful, with lower soldiers gossiping about Chloe's appearance and how she snagged the Archduke, and higher-ups also having opinions. Chloe Ambroise and Curtis stand together, while Prince Frederick, the silver-haired man, sits on a throne-like chair with glowing eyes, asking if he should deliver His Majesty's message. Gossip circulates, with some pitying Chloe Ambroise for marrying the brigadier, speculating she was threatened or suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Other soldiers believe Chloe Ambroise genuinely fell for Curtis, the brigadier, thinking love makes nothing else matter, especially since he is good-looking. Further gossip portrays Chloe Ambroise as a ruthless, ambitious legend who achieved a power marriage, recalling her family's struggles and questioning her past association with squad leader Dubois. The blonde-haired man tells the reddish-brown-haired man Matthew to shut up, prompting Matthew to ask why. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, looks surprised as he questions if the comment was intended for him to hear. The blonde-haired man and Matthew exclaim, "Ah!" and "Warrant Officer Dubois," at Ezra Dubois, the auburn-haired man in uniform who looks on calmly. The blonde-haired man and Matthew, surrounded by purple energy, frantically apologize to Ezra Dubois, claiming they were just joking around. The dark green-haired man sternly condemns the royal guards for insulting the Grand Duchess, while Ezra Dubois looks severe, vowing to report them to the third squad leader and warning them about the consequences of running their mouths. Ezra Dubois, the auburn-haired man, dismisses the two chibi figures of the blonde-haired man and Matthew, who quickly flee, exclaiming, Yes, sir!" The dark green-haired man laughs and calls Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, a dumbass, prompting Matthew to retort that it's all his fault. The dark green-haired man wonders how Chloe Ambroise and the brigadier ended up together, while Matthew tells him to just eat already, putting an arm around him. The two men at the table discuss Chloe Ambroise, with the dark green-haired man asking what Matthew meant, and Matthew questioning if Chloe ever talked about dating when he used to guard her. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, eats thoughtfully as the dark green-haired man, off-panel, expresses regret at not having asked something. The dark green-haired man asks Matthew how he would know about Chloe's dating history, but Matthew retorts that as the second squad leader, he should know. Matthew looks surprised as the dark green-haired man exasperatedly declares he doesn't know and states that Commander Victor, who summoned Chloe, will handle it, while Matthew questions his anger. Matthew looks exasperated as the dark green-haired man, covering his mouth, explains he is mad because people keep discussing something he doesn't care about, and tells Matthew to stop asking him. The dark green-haired man appears slightly uncomfortable as he mentions hearing Chloe Ambroise came to work today in a fancy Manistone car. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, acknowledges the dark green-haired man's feelings, agreeing that it feels off when a friend who used to badmouth the brigadier suddenly marries him. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, looks serious and contemplative, lost in thought. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, looks startled, adjusting his collar as he questions Chloe Ambroise's marriage, then reflects that if he finds true love, even his mother wouldn't object to his work anymore. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and Chloe Ambroise, now with purple hair, stand formally, with Chloe Ambroise questioning, Is this really right? Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, looks distressed, wondering why Chloe Ambrose, now with purple hair, is wearing a uniform like a political show at a wedding where she should be beautiful. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, looks at Chloe Ambrose, now with purple hair, and again questions whether this is really right. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, looks distraught, thinking about taking the most private matters of the bedroom into public spectacle. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, observes Curtis and Chloe Ambrose, now with purple hair, from a distance, still questioning, is that right? Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and Chloe Ambrose, now with purple hair, stand close in an elegant outdoor setting, with Chloe Ambrose's hand resting on Curtis's arm. A gloved hand grasps at fabric, while a narrative voice states that many marry bad men unknowingly, but Chloe Ambrose was aware of who she was marrying. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks intensely forward as a narrative explains that Chloe Ambrose, as his adjutant, was closer than anyone and witnessed how ruthless Curtis Schanberg truly is. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, sits alone at a dining table, seen from behind, appearing contemplative after the day's events. The dark green-haired man expresses surprise to Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, at how well Chloe Ambrose and Curtis kept their relationship a secret. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and Chloe Ambrose, now with dark blue hair, stand formally with their backs to the viewer, flanked by spectral knights. Chloe Ambrose, the dark blue-haired woman, looks angry, warning not to come crying later, asking for dating stories, calling the person a bastard. Chloe Ambrose, the dark blue-haired woman, stands elegantly as Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, struggles to open the carriage door for her. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, looks troubled, his thoughts trailing off with, An unseen speaker, likely Matthew, questions whether he can even ask, thinking they used to be close, as a gloved hand gestures on a table. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, sits alone at the dining table, looking dejected, pondering if he's being pushed away and admitting he doesn't know. Matthew's green eyes, wide and filled with emotion, are shown in a close-up, reflecting his internal turmoil. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, recalls a moment when Chloe Ambrose, the dark blue-haired woman, was disrespected by Agatha Monfils, the brown-haired woman, because of him, and he, quote, couldn't do anything. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and Junwi, the light brown-haired man with a ponytail, stand side by side in uniform, smiling confidently. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, instructs Warrant Officer Dubois Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, to take Leah and Iris, stating that the Grand Duchess and he will travel separately. A brown-haired woman with gold hair accessories speaks to Warrant Officer Dubois Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, who holds his head and trails off with, Miss Sarah, a blonde-haired woman with blue eyes and light brown hair, smiles charmingly as the dark green-haired man exclaims, Miss Sarah! Miss Sarah, the blonde-haired woman, smiles and confirms, haha, yes, I just did, while Warrant Officer Dubois Matthew eats and the dark green-haired man gestures. The dark green-haired man, smiling, tells Miss Sarah that he actually came to ask something, and she eagerly encourages him to go ahead. The dark green-haired man apologizes for asking a personal question about Miss Sarah's closeness to the Grand Duchess, but Miss Sarah, smiling, invites him to ask away. The dark green-haired man looks pensive as he explains that his mother wants to invite the Grand Duchess to a gathering, trailing off with, The dark green-haired man apologizes for asking too much, but Miss Sarah reassures him, and Warrant Officer Dubois Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, reveals that the Grand Duchess is turning down all invitations. Warrant Officer Dubois Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, looks shocked, while the dark green-haired man, annoyed, asks if he can't put it more nicely, and Miss Sarah replies, Oh, I see. The dark green-haired man, touching his head, looks distressed, as chibi figures representing a dark-haired woman and himself accuse him of lying about being close with the Grand Duchess. With a small ouch thought bubble, the dark green-haired man smiles broadly and confidently, proudly declaring himself Grand Duchess Chloe's best friend, and promising to pass along the request if he can arrange an appointment. Chibi versions of Matthew and a black-haired man playfully pull a chibi blonde-haired woman, with the black-haired man asking what that is, as sounds of Dikui and SYUK fill the air. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, walks away declaring he is leaving, while the dark green-haired man exclaims, "That punk!" And the blonde-haired woman watches with a slight smile, amidst sounds of Bioliok and Eoxy. Matthew, the reddish-brown-haired man, stands looking sullen, and an unseen speaker remarks that he is just in a mood and throwing a tantrum. Prince Frederick, the silver-haired man, formally congratulates Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, on their marriage. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, stands looking slightly flustered next to Curtis, the blonde-haired man, both in uniform. Prince Frederick, the silver-haired man, with glowing eyes, sits, asking if he should deliver His Majesty's message. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles subtly, inquiring about His Majesty's words. Prince Frederick, the silver-haired man, reveals His Majesty's message is for them to host a housewarming. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, looks wide-eyed and shocked by the directive. Prince Frederick, the silver-haired man, reiterates that Chloe Ambroise is to throw a housewarming party. Chloe Ambroise questions holding a royal banquet, and Prince Frederick confirms, explaining it is for the 28th anniversary of diplomatic relations, and since the marriage talks of Glintrand fell apart, this banquet must succeed. Prince Frederick, the silver-haired man, points out to Chloe Ambroise that she is now royalty too. Prince Frederick mentions 2 royal elders more skilled than he, noting that the crown princess is also there but has come down with a terrible cold and body aches. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, laughs, suggesting His Majesty the King must have made the crown princess sick, which prompts Chloe Ambroise to question if such a remark is appropriate. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, looks shocked as Curtis, the blonde-haired man, casually smiles, making her question his nonchalance. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, seen from behind, informs Prince Frederick that His Majesty the King has assigned Marquis Flandre to another task. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, muses that talking about these matters is tiring, adding that Prince Frederick seems to roughly understand Curtis's position and how well they get along. Prince Frederick, the silver-haired man, looks surprised with an exclamation. Curtis states they will prepare diligently, but Prince Frederick immediately corrects him, saying that is not what he meant. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles broadly, joking that because Prince Frederick introduced them, his standing before the king is awkward, but then adds they are living happily ever after, thanks to him. Prince Frederick, the silver-haired man, points, instructing them to look at where they are standing. Prince Frederick criticizes Curtis for always standing on a specific tile in his room, as if the other tiles had dung on them, calling him peculiar. Prince Frederick observes that Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, maintain exactly 2 spaces between them, just like now. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, shows a single tear in her eye, reflecting her dismay. Prince Frederick advises them to act properly, not making the distance so obvious, questioning if even a naive king wouldn't notice such a thing. A magnificent, sprawling castle stands under a blue sky dotted with white clouds. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles confidently, amidst a background of floating flower petals and stars. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, with glowing pink eyes, looks menacingly and questions if he is crazy. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, looks irritated as 2 soldiers gossip behind her, remarking that they are newlyweds. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, looks deeply annoyed and lets out an exasperated sigh. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, holds Chloe Ambroise's hand as they walk, while she looks disgruntled, accompanied by the sound of pock. Chloe Ambroise reflects that Curtis identified distance as the problem, something she wasn't conscious of but is now trying to manage within the palace. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, tells Chloe Ambroise that if she is going to hold his hand with such an expression, it would be better not to, as rumors of discord will spread just 2 weeks into their marriage. Chloe Ambroise and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, walk through an archway as unseen speakers question if her discharge is still valid or even possible. While Curtis asserts it's impossible, making Chloe wonder if he wants to get hit. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles as he reveals that His Majesty the King used all sorts of power to remove Chloe from her post as his adjutant, but ultimately failed. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, recalls a slave contract that pays well but she can never quit, finding it an impossible contract to forget. An unseen speaker explains that the Grand Marshal got His Majesty the King's seal on the contract, whose authority even the king cannot rashly defy. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, makes a peace sign explaining that the king needed the permission of Chloe's direct superior. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles faintly, asking if she would be sad. Prince Frederick, the silver-haired man, connects the Grand Marshal's past comment about the ensign getting a fine husband to the current situation. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks towards Chloe Ambroise with a subtle smile in a garden setting. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks at Chloe Ambroise with an unstated thought. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, questions Curtis's motives, suggesting it would be more beneficial for him to dismiss her and pretend to listen to the king rather than keep her. Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, continues her thought, reasoning that Curtis could use her as bait and let the king reprimand her while he quietly prepares his next step. Chloe Ambroise's pink eyes glow intensely as she looks suspiciously forward. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and Chloe Ambroise, the dark blue-haired woman, walk away from the palace with their backs to the viewer. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, walks behind Curtis, the blonde-haired man, reacting with an internal "oh" as he strides away. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks distressed, wondering why Curtis, the blonde-haired man, is acting that way and storming off after just warning her about watching eyes, leaving his wife behind. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, observes Curtis's legs as he walks with wide strides, pondering his sudden temper tantrum and exclaiming, "Ah!" Curtis, the blonde-haired man, turns back with a shocked expression, calling out Chloe's rank, "Ensign?" Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, is seen kneeling on the ground, looking disheveled, suggesting a fall or impact. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, points to some bushes, complaining about the slackening gardeners, while Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, stands awkwardly beside him. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, turns to Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, asking if she sees him as trash. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks ahead with a contemplative and slightly troubled expression. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, comments to Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, that she is a bit short-sighted. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, offers to correct herself if Curtis, the blonde-haired man, tells her what to do, while he questions if he has to spell it out for her. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, touches his throat, experiencing a strange internal feeling, as if something is caught there. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, internally justifies her actions, believing it's right for Curtis, the blonde-haired man, to use her as bait while he plans his next move, suggesting this is why he paid such a high price for her. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, confronts Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, asking if her earlier comments were appropriate to make in front of others, to which she apologizes. Narration reveals that no one is actually nearby, as Curtis, the blonde-haired man, has become an expert at sensing presences due to childhood assassination attempts. Narration continues, explaining that Curtis, the blonde-haired man, also knows Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, is being cautious, though not to his extent. The narration describes Curtis's internal reaction, stating that upon hearing Chloe's words, he felt annoyed and rephrased his earlier thought from, "Is that something to say in front of others?" to, "Is that something to say to me right now?" Curtis, the blonde-haired man, tells Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, that he shouldn't be saying such things and will correct his behavior as she looks downcast. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, reflects that he's been feeling a strange emotion, acknowledging his earlier comment about Chloe being short-sighted was unintended and excessive, and admitting he acted rashly towards someone who holds a weakness of his, despite their contractual relationship. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, reflects that Curtis's frustration and her unpleasant expression bothering him must be due to a weakness he holds. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, tells Curtis, the blonde-haired man, that she has something to say, prompting him to speak, and she internally realizes he seems offended, concluding she should apologize. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks puzzled, questioning if something is missing in her address, reacting to being called simply Brigadier General. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, further muses that she didn't use any honorifics, only Brigadier General, deepening his confusion. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, glares intensely with glowing eyes as Curtis, the blonde-haired man, leans close, while a text box highlights prenuptial agreement between Chloe Ambroise and Curtis Sandberg, Article 3. A promotional banner for Nick's scans is displayed against a dark background, featuring a smiling blonde-haired woman. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, admits she made a mistake but follows with a wry smile, implying there's an unspoken but. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, states that their current location is the middle of the royal palace. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks away thoughtfully. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, regrets her earlier words, thinking she should have watched her mouth. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, directly asks Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, "Do you see me as trash, warrant officer?" Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, internally considers that if one feels like dying from holding back their temper, it implies a significant emotional burden. A close-up shows Chloe's civilian attire, a plaid top with a brooch, focusing on the detail. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, in civilian clothes, looks surprised or deep in thought. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, clutches her head in frustration, while an enraged version of her with glowing eyes appears, suggesting an internal struggle or a strong suppressed emotion. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, internally laments Curtis broadcasting his harsh words towards her in the palace for everyone, including his beloved Grand Duchess, to see, as her angry alter ego with glowing eyes is shown. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman with glowing eyes, asks Curtis, "Is that something for you to say to me?" A contract clause is revealed, stating that Chloe Ambroise can demand 3 requests from Curtis during their contract period, with times remaining 2. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks concerned as he faces Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman who has her back to the viewer. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks at Curtis, the blonde-haired man, with an exasperated expression and glowing red eyes. A gloved hand, belonging to Curtis, the blonde-haired man, gestures or reaches out amidst green foliage. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, asks Curtis, the blonde-haired man, "Am I wrong?" while he smiles confidently below. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stand facing each other with a distinct space between their feet, emphasizing their deliberate distance. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, stands with crossed arms, maintaining distance from Curtis, the blonde-haired man, who has his hands clasped behind his back. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles coyly, her eyes glowing red, as she thinks to herself. A garden scene with a lamppost and a bench is shown, and an unseen speaker suggests they sit there for now. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, sits on the bench while Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, stands opposite him, questioning, but Curtis, the blonde-haired man, asks Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, about the duration of their marriage. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, asserts that their current period should be considered a training period, which Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, confirms as correct. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, admits he made a mistake, as an image of their feet standing close together symbolizes the ongoing, quote, training period. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks shocked and asks Curtis, the blonde-haired man, if he doesn't know when to stop, before internally concluding it's a thrill. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles brightly with her eyes closed, seemingly amused or content. Chibi Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, appears displeased, covering her nose in a sparkly strawberry-filled scene. An unseen speaker questions why they are being berated for a small mistake, as a gloved hand rests on a uniform. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks thoughtful as an unseen speaker criticizes his lack of magnanimity and hints at deeper reasons for their words. An unseen speaker probes Curtis, the blonde-haired man, about his affections, while Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, expresses difficulty with their marriage due to his vile actions and then apologizes. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks concerned as he touches his face with a gloved hand. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks distressed with glowing red eyes as she holds up her ring and questions if she should return it. Shh! Curtis, the blonde-haired man, touches his chin thoughtfully. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, sits on a bench with a confused and angry expression. A close-up highlights Chloe's gloved hands and ring, with an unseen speaker's thought beginning to form. Chloe's gloved hands carefully remove the ring from her finger. Whack wham, Curtis, the blonde-haired man, suddenly embraces a surprised Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, her hair flying. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, sits startled on Curtis's lap on a bench, internally urging herself to hold still, as an unseen voice questions her adjutant role. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, has a tearful, intense, glowing red eye. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, holds Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, close as she internally wonders about bearing it, while two men in white uniforms observe from afar. Chloe's dark blue hair and Curtis's blonde hair are pressed close together in an intimate embrace. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, embraces Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, on a bench while the two uniformed men continue to observe them from a distance. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles while holding Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, reassuring her that her anger is natural. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, tightly embraces Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looking at her with a knowing smile. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, sits intimately with Curtis, the blonde-haired man, on a bench, pointing a finger at him. Shudder. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, points angrily at Curtis, the blonde-haired man, who only smiles mischievously in response. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, leans his head against Chloe's dark blue hair, implying a moment of deep thought amidst a patterned transition. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, embrace closely on the bench. Chuckling, Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks towards Chloe with a hint of amusement. A close-up on Chloe's dark blue hair and uniform hints at an unseen speaker's thought about something grand. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks surprised as an unseen thought questions the impracticality of sacrificing a Grand Duchess to the king. As Curtis, the blonde-haired man, holds Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, on the bench, an unseen thought reflects on his intention to protect her. A wide shot of the palace gardens accompanies an unseen speaker's solemn declaration. An unseen speaker, standing in a decorated garden, firmly declares no intention of sacrificing Chloe to his older brother. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, share an intense look, as an unseen thought questions if his words are truly meant for her. An unseen internal thought observes his serious demeanor, but feels his words are strangely not directed at them. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks puzzled at Curtis, the blonde-haired man, as an unseen thought concludes his words aren't directed at her. Shaking, Curtis, the blonde-haired man, touches Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, as an unseen speaker suggests they should go to Glintland. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks over her shoulder towards a uniformed man observing them from a distance. Giggle. A close-up shows the profiles of Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, highlighting his purple eye. An unseen speaker questions if Curtis knows about the dirt on his clothes, realizing it would perfectly fuel rumors of Grand Duke Berg's love for his Grand Duchess. An unseen speaker suggests Curtis, the blonde-haired man, kneel, surprising Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, who internally questions doing it right here, as a small image shows their embrace. A close-up on two uniformed figures confirms that they are still watching. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, embraces Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, from behind, as an unseen speaker reflects on past concerns. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stands thoughtfully as an unseen speaker addresses him as Brigadier General Berg. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks distressed, her red eyes glowing as she asks if she should return the ring, while an unseen thought reflects on the emotional impact of words. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, sits on Curtis's lap on a bench, as an unseen thought reflects on her past difficulty even sharing a space. A close-up on the intricate bench design marks a subtle transition in the scene. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, leans into Chloe's dark blue hair, as an unseen thought expresses surprise at ending up hugging her. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, shows a faint, knowing smile in profile. A close-up of Chloe's uniform suggests an unseen speaker's thought is about to continue. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, gestures to Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, stating he will now put what he has learned to good use. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, suggests holding hands with Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, as an unseen thought notes their worldwide status as a married couple. Chibi Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks embarrassed as an unseen speaker questions her strong reaction. An unseen speaker dismisses a previous statement as a lie now against a background of uniforms and nature. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, hold gloved hands, prompting an unseen speaker to exclaim about the gloves. The dark brown-haired man and the light brown-haired man in uniform cover their mouths in shock, with the dark brown-haired man thinking, "Oh my," and the light brown-haired man thinking angrily that someone is selfish. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks flustered and embarrassed, her face flushed. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, continues to appear flustered as she stands in her uniform. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks angry and embarrassed as Curtis, the blonde-haired man, holds her hand, declaring he is taking the shortest route and telling her not to speak. An unseen speaker, likely Curtis, seeks agreement, then expresses his utmost pleasure. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, firmly holds Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman's hand, asking why he cannot, since they are a married couple, as Chloe tries to pull away. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles contentedly, his eyes closed in satisfaction amidst a floral setting. The scene transitions with a promotional message. The king furiously confronts Curtis, the blonde-haired man, questioning his repeated defiance of commands, while Curtis looks annoyed. The king, the reddish-brown-haired man, enraged, threatens to humiliate Curtis's wife by making her host the diplomatic banquet if Curtis continues to ignore his duties as a royal. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks thoughtful as he identifies the king's threat concerning the diplomatic banquet. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, accepts the king's challenge but reminds him that the Grand Duchess is still a lieutenant in the royal guard. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, maintains a stern and resolved expression, confirming his determination. The king, the reddish-brown-haired man, glares furiously and calls Curtis that insolent brat. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, with glowing red eyes, suggests Curtis use her as bait to distract the king, a strategy Curtis internally acknowledges as correct. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, is shown in two panels, first with a smug smirk and then laughing, revealing his satisfaction. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, reflects on hugging Chloe yesterday, interpreting it as a feeling of satisfaction, like patting a subordinate after a successful battle. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles to himself, contemplating rewarding Chloe with clothes, thinking that shopping together would be nice. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles triumphantly and announces his departure to the king, who is seated on his throne and furiously demands he return. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, leads Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, away by the hand, observing that the king seems royally pissed, while Chloe asks if Curtis is all right. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles cunningly, considering further provoking the king, since the situation is already volatile. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, reacts with wide-eyed shock and horror at an unseen proposition. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, playfully pulls a flustered Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, by the hand through the palace. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles confidently, radiating satisfaction. Chloe's gloved hand is held by Curtis's gloved hand in a close-up shot. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smirks subtly, his purple eye gleaming in profile. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and a still flustered Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, walk hand in hand through the palace. Curtis and Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, hold hands, shocking the three uniformed onlookers, with one exclaiming, "Ack!" Lieutenant Ezra Dubois, the dark brown-haired man in uniform, reacts with extreme shock, questioning in disbelief if Curtis, the warrior of cleanliness, is truly holding Chloe Ambrose's hand willingly. Lieutenant Ezra Dubois, the dark brown-haired man in uniform, still aghast, questions if Curtis and Chloe's hand-holding is illegal. Lieutenant Ezra Dubois, the dark brown-haired man in uniform, and Sergeant Sarah de Tournier, the blonde-haired woman in uniform, salute and report to Curtis, the blonde-haired man, while Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, and the auburn-haired man in uniform stand nearby. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, mockingly asks what was illegal as a chibi. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks distressed, internally exclaiming that he is not letting it go. Lieutenant Ezra Dubois, the dark brown-haired man in uniform, praises Chloe Ambrose's beauty as simply criminal, causing Curtis, the blonde-haired man, to smirk and question his sanity, deeming the comment about his wife flippant. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles mischievously, surrounded by a purple aura, indicating his cunning amusement. The auburn-haired man in uniform bows, profusely apologizing to Lieutenant Ezra Dubois, the dark brown-haired man in uniform, for his excessive congratulatory words, and promises to rectify the situation. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, states he shares responsibility for the first squad leader's mistake, as the second squad leader, surprising Lieutenant Ezra Dubois, the dark brown-haired man, who tries to interject. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, questions Sergeant Sarah de Tournier, the blonde-haired woman in uniform, about her personal business with Lieutenant Berg, making both her and Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, appear nervous. Sergeant Sarah de Tournier, the blonde-haired woman in uniform, nervously explains that her business was her delight in greeting the Grand Duchess. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, questions if only the Grand Duchess was greeted, causing Sergeant Sarah de Tournier, the blonde-haired woman in uniform, to react with shock and ask if she also needs to greet the Grand Duke. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, reveals his knowledge of a lady who sent 2 daughters into the military and plans a visit, surprising Sergeant Sarah de Tournier, the blonde-haired woman, who had no idea he knew. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, takes Sergeant Sarah de Tournier's arm, who nervously asks, "Yeah, yes?" Sergeant Sarah de Tournier, the blonde-haired woman in uniform, nervously questions the appropriateness of the arm-linking escort, while Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks utterly shocked and blank. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and Sergeant Sarah de Tournier, the blonde-haired woman in uniform, walk with linked arms through the palace. Lieutenant Ezra Dubois, the dark brown-haired man in uniform, observes Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, thinking she hasn't caught on to the problem yet, as Chloe responds with a puzzled, "Huh?" Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, tells an unseen speaker she has been fine and that he was the problem, as everyone panicked when he announced his marriage. Lieutenant Ezra Dubois, the dark brown-haired man in uniform, playfully pinches a chibi Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman's, cheeks, expressing concern about her weight loss and asking if she was threatened. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks annoyed with glowing red eyes as her cheeks are pinched by hands. The auburn-haired man in uniform states that someone among them is different and announces his departure. The auburn-haired man in uniform declares he has said enough, as Lieutenant Ezra Dubois, the dark brown-haired man in uniform, and Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, look on. Lieutenant Ezra Dubois, the dark brown-haired man in uniform, tells Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, to disregard the auburn-haired man's foul mood, and Chloe agrees, stating that discomfort is expected. Chibi Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks distressed and shocked, her eyes wide with concern. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, reacts with a surprised, "Huh?" as the green-haired man in uniform tells her she must invite him as the guest of honor to her first banquet, prompting Chloe to respond with an "EHH?" The green-haired man in uniform laughs triumphantly, clenching his fists in excitement, while Sergeant Sarah de Tournier, the blonde-haired woman in uniform, looks on with annoyance. Against a lush garden background, an unseen speaker tells a snob to drop dead, while another unseen voice apologizes, claiming they cannot hear from a high pedestal. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles happily with her eyes closed, seemingly amused by something. The light brown-haired man, with a ponytail, stands with his back to the viewer, looking out over a grand palace garden. A grand palace is shown as an unseen speaker suggests not to worry, as the situation cannot be helped since things suddenly became this way. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, sits in a library, reading, feeling relieved that events are within her expectations, but she wonders when Ezra will finally get over it. The red-haired woman in a blue dress looks utterly shocked and furious, questioning if she's the person King Brown himself dispatched for Chloe's sake. The red-haired woman in a blue dress stands in a lavish room taking a delicate sip from a small cup. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, asks the red-haired woman in a blue dress what brings her here, and the red-haired woman, accompanied by Junwi, the light brown-haired man, explains she was sent by the king for the 28th anniversary celebration of diplomatic ties. The red-haired woman in a blue dress tells Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, that Duke Berk's refusal to strip Chloe of her title has complicated royal support, but assures her the king is generous and considerate toward the Duchess. Junwi, the light brown-haired man, holds up his hand, stating that this is Duke Burke's office and only the Duke has the authority to give orders. The red-haired woman in a blue dress looks surprised, extending her hand towards Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, and Junwi, the light brown-haired man, thinking that Chloe is no ordinary man. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, states she'd rather not, while the red-haired woman in a blue dress, looking distressed, stands fanning herself in the background. The red-haired woman in a blue dress questions Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, about bringing an old man into this cramped place, remarking that there are proper offices for royal ladies at the Capitol Palace and that this one looks worn down. An unseen speaker questions why they would provoke the king, while a chibi Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, and a chibi Junwi, the light brown-haired man, look shocked, with a second bubble suggesting if it's too cramped, they can help while standing. The red-haired woman in a blue dress complains about her knees hurting from standing, prompting Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, to suggest she can sit on the nearby bed. The red-haired woman in a blue dress exclaims, "How improper!" while Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, with a slight smile, asks if she will simply keep standing. The red-haired woman in a blue dress sits tiredly on the bed, as Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, internally reflects on them now having one more pitiful old man who has to work in this cramped room. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles, internally noting that she thought the red-haired woman in a blue dress might be formidable but is just a talkative old lady. The red-haired woman in a blue dress looks upset, expressing her inability to understand why someone insists on refusing the king's grace, adding that it's not just the Duchess. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks surprised as Junwi, the light brown-haired man, leans in, telling her to hang in there. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, diligently works at her desk while the red-haired woman in a blue dress sits on the floor, complaining about Curtis's headache and rambling about the king and duke, which Chloe dismisses as white noise to focus on her tasks. The red-haired woman in a blue dress turns to look back at Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, who is seated at her desk. The red-haired woman in a blue dress angrily shouts at Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, for looking elsewhere when an old man is speaking, calling her behavior disrespectful. The red-haired woman in a blue dress sits at a desk, looking at Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, who rubs her forehead, as Chloe internally thinks that a kind person is standing right in front of her. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, internally states that, if not for His Majesty's orders, she wouldn't be so kind, then tells someone not to interrupt, and summarizes that they have come by royal order to assist with hosting the 28th anniversary celebration with Clintrand. The red-haired woman in a blue dress appears deeply distressed and worried. The red-haired woman in a blue dress tells Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, that she is of minor noble birth and has never hosted or even attended a royal banquet. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks utterly shocked and exclaims, "Unbelievable," as Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stands next to her, smiling knowingly. The red-haired woman in a blue dress clutches her temple, looking stressed, as an unseen speaker asks if something is wrong. The red-haired woman in a blue dress scolds Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, for admitting something so shameful in front of others, especially given her third highest rank within the royal family. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, questions if ignorance is truly shameful, to which the red-haired woman in a blue dress emphatically replies, "Of course it is." The red-haired woman in a blue dress gestures emphatically, stating that higher rank means higher expectations, and a ruler must know everything, with shadowy figures of royalty depicted above. The red-haired woman in a blue dress tells Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, that His Majesty sent her to help meet those expectations, while Chloe agrees that a ruler should know everything but adds that no one is born that way. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles widely, her eyes closed in amusement. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks at an unseen speaker, then internally considers, "Then don't tell me." Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, leans over the tearful red-haired woman in a blue dress, questioning if she came to scold Chloe, the third highest-ranking member of the royal family. In a lower panel, Chloe and Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stand with the red-haired woman talking. 2 handwritten letters are spread across a wooden desk, accompanied by an inkwell and a quill. A chibi Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, cries amidst towering stacks of papers, thinking that trivial tasks can be left to replaceable people, much like when she was an adjutant to Brigadier Burke. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, regal in a crown and cape, stands confidently. As narration states, she has become far too high-ranking to handle everything from start to finish. The red-haired woman in a blue dress looks upset, thinking that for small tasks like preparing a banquet, Madame Bring would know, while Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles subtly, agreeing. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, stands next to the red-haired woman in a blue dress, who is sitting on a bed. Chloe explains to determine the banquet's purpose and select key attendees, then clarifies the purpose is the 28th anniversary of diplomatic relations with Glintland. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles and points her finger, stating that if the red-haired woman doesn't provide the information, it is now Chloe's responsibility. The red-haired woman in a blue dress looks distressed, sighing, and begins taking notes as instructed. The red-haired woman in a blue dress instructs that all delegation members, along with Count Enel, Baron LeBlanc, Viscount and Viscountess Fleur from the Evanes nobility list, must be invited. A chibi Junwi, the light brown-haired man, reacts with, "Okay," as a chibi red-haired woman confirms, "That's right," and the red-haired woman then adds Countess Rihanna and Baron Worth to the list. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, holds a long scroll, thinking that a royal event means inviting many people, and asks about the contents of the invitation. The red-haired woman in a blue dress with a triumphant smile instructs Chloe to simply write that the invitation is to celebrate the 28th anniversary of diplomatic relations with Glintland, ensuring it is sincerely and, of course, handwritten. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks distressed, wondering if she has to handwrite invitations for all those people, then thinks it will be tough, but there's no way around it. An unseen speaker reflects that the only handwriting they mastered as Brigadier Burke's adjutant was the official palace script, perfect for documents. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, yawns tiredly, holding a quill, thinking that no one would even notice if a clerk wrote the documents instead. An unseen speaker insists Chloe must also memorize high-ranking nobles' names and faces, while a chibi Curtis, the blonde-haired man, boasts he memorized it all before the wedding. An unseen speaker notes Chloe must greet guests, but chibi Curtis, the blonde-haired man, winks, stating the king had no complaints, revealing Curtis handled damage control behind the scenes. The red-haired woman in a blue dress, looking utterly furious, demands to know if Chloe at least knows how to greet foreign nobles. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, casually offers a greeting, but the red-haired woman in a blue dress warns such informality would lead to utter humiliation, identifying a weak spot. The red-haired woman in a blue dress instructs Chloe to listen carefully, demonstrating the proper bow by keeping her back and waist straight, stepping back with her left foot, and bending only her knee. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles awkwardly, admitting it's hard to follow verbal instructions and she's not the quickest learner. The red-haired woman in a blue dress looks determined, her expression stern. An unseen speaker instructs to stand straight, engage the core to avoid slouching, then take a half step back with the left foot. The red-haired woman in a blue dress performs an elegant, deep curtsy, demonstrating the proper greeting. In a dramatic, crackling blue and purple setting, Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, praises the red-haired woman in a blue dress whose hair appears pink in this image for her elegant bow. A pair of gloved hands hold a richly decorated maroon book. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, and a blonde-haired man, Noel, sit at a table while an unseen speaker explains the Book of Protocol contains 20 years of banquet records and will be helpful. The blonde-haired man, Noel, states he is leaving, and a smiling Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, thanks him profusely. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles widely, rubbing her nose in satisfaction while holding the protocol book. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, questions Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, about his trip to the Royal Archives, receiving a confused "huh?" before he dismisses the topic. An unseen speaker asserts that royal events are recorded, not guesswork, while Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, wonders why Curtis, the blonde-haired man, is so twisted up. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, stands with his arms crossed, looking serious and a bit displeased. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, swiftly rushes past Curtis, the blonde-haired man, who watches her with a subtle, knowing expression. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, suggests that instead of fighting, His Excellency should emulate the diligent transcriber of the thick protocol book, avoiding unnecessary overtime for others. Achibi Curtis, the blonde-haired man, questions if Noel wrote the book, while Achibi Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, affirms that Lieutenant Noel, unlike some others, is diligent. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks thoughtfully into the distance. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles awkwardly, admitting she doesn't understand well from words alone and is very lacking. The red-haired woman in a blue dress, looking resolute, demonstrates by stepping 1 foot back. A decorative panel with sparkling flowers enhances the visual transition. The red-haired woman in a blue dress elegantly performs a deep curtsy once more. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks utterly amazed and exclaims, "Wow!" In a vibrant, crackling purple and blue setting, Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, compliments the red-haired woman in a blue dress, whose hair appears pink in this image on such a great bow. The blonde-haired man and the purple-haired man discreetly peek from behind a door, whispering, "PFFT and eek." Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles, observing the red-haired woman in a blue dress. The red-haired woman in a blue dress looks sternly, questioning if the attitude she has received is genuinely pure praise and humility. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, observes the red-haired woman and internally realizes that she can no longer tease her, as she seems to be choosing a direct confrontation. The red-haired woman in a blue dress, looking shocked, addresses Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, asserting she was only trying to help in all seriousness, which Chloe calmly acknowledges. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, states she is aware that, beyond the king's command, the red-haired woman came to teach her how not to be an embarrassment. An unseen speaker concludes that at the very least, the red-haired woman didn't come to humiliate and crush Chloe, confirming that much was true. The narration reveals that if she had wanted to please the king, the dark-haired woman could have given false information to humiliate Chloe, but Madame Bring intended to faithfully carry out her mission. The narration describes Madame Bring, the red-haired woman in a blue dress, as having a sense of responsibility and observing etiquette and grace, just as her reputation suggests. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks slightly displeased and deep in thought. The narration states Chloe apologized to the old lady who was just doing her job, and Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, apologizes to the red-haired woman for her rudeness, who responds with confusion. The red-haired woman in a blue dress looks dismayed, stating she cannot read minds. An unseen speaker mentions someone sending this old woman here, while Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, bows low to the red-haired woman in a blue dress, bathed in a sparkling glow. An unseen speaker declares they will pay respects to the red-haired woman's patriotism amid sparkling flowers. An unseen speaker thanks someone, reflecting that for a first time, it was good, as a cozy fireplace glows. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks distressed, internally acknowledging that the red-haired woman isn't completely bad, but there's a caveat. The red-haired woman in a blue dress instructs Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, that her legs are too long for the form and she needs to adjust her back foot. The chibi red-haired woman, surrounded by question marks, sternly asks chibi Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, when she was planning on learning, if not now. An unseen speaker advises to humble oneself and ask for understanding, as speaking discourteously is improper. But Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, internally insists it's not that. The red-haired woman in a blue dress dramatically declares an emergency, stating that while Chloe's devotion as a royal guard is respected, this old woman cannot allow her to be humiliated, leaving a distressed Chloe questioning why this is happening to her. The red-haired woman in a blue dress suggests Chloe protest to the Grand Duke if she wants to argue about the humiliation for Ivanese, but Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, states the Grand Duke is working hard to prevent such an outcome. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks surprised to learn the Grand Duke had borrowed the royal banquet protocol book. The dark brown-haired man, ordered by the Grand Duke, explicitly sought details about the protocol book's location. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, with a displeased expression, questions the relevance of his orders. The red-haired woman states she is keenly aware of her responsibility. Surprised Chloe would attribute problems to her. A distressed chibi Chloe wonders why the man is always listening, then declares the red-haired woman must take full responsibility. Curtis reacts with a shocked "what?" upon hearing the demand for the red-haired woman to take responsibility. Curtis instructs the red-haired woman to diligently teach Chloe for the upcoming Eleonora Society meeting and diplomatic banquet, using her royal guard hours. Curtis and the red-haired woman agree to the plan, leaving Chloe furious as she observes them deciding her fate without her input. The chibi red-haired woman pulls a bewildered chibi Chloe away, beginning their new arrangement. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks utterly shocked and distressed, overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events. Against a grand palace, Curtis mischievously suggests this entire situation is retribution for not acknowledging him, winking. The dark-haired man smiles awkwardly, seemingly caught in an uncomfortable situation. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, stands uncomfortably in an elegant white dress shimmering with a soft purple aura. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, replies curtly with "yeah," her expression conveying deep disinterest. The scene shifts to an elegant castle under a clear sky, marking the beginning of a new day. A gloved hand gestures towards the empty, ornate throne at the head of a long table where a blonde-haired woman is seated. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, stands elegantly in her dress while a black-haired man in uniform is seated at the table. A gloved hand gently touches the back of an ornate, red-cushioned chair. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, seated regally at the head of a long table with other women, makes her official debut in high society. On the day of the Eleonora Society meeting, a voice welcomes the Grand Duchess at the Grand Palace. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks surprised to recognize Theodora de Tournier, the blonde-haired woman, as the director. Theodora de Tournier, an accomplished officer and older sister of Sarah Tournier, is introduced. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, greets Theodora de Tournier with a charming smile, mentioning she's heard a lot about her from the Grand Duke. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles subtly, noting her expected seat of honor in the absence of the Marquis Flandre. Sergeant Sarah de Tournier, the blonde-haired woman in uniform, looks annoyed, her arms crossed in a huff. Chibi Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, expresses a pouting, disgruntled look. A thought bubble reveals that one of the blonde-haired women is Chloe's former Navy colleague. Chloe's cheerful blonde-haired Navy colleague, Laura Legautier, is introduced. Laura Legautier animatedly expresses her surprise at the news and asks Chloe if she remembers her, to which Chloe confirms. Laura Legautier happily introduces herself by her new name and viscounty, which Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, acknowledges. Laura Legautier explains she was discharged from the Navy after marriage, and her husband encouraged her to attend the society meeting. Laura Legautier and Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, exchange warm smiles, enjoying their reunion. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, internally questions her closeness with Laura, recalling her past as a legendary Gen Z soldier who everyone avoided due to her pursuit of money. Laura Legautier expresses pleasure in seeing Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, and asks to remain friends, which Chloe readily affirms with a handshake. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, smiles sweetly and demurely at the viewer, maintaining her elegant facade. Three women at the table react with visible surprise, one covering her mouth in shock. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks displeased, with a subtle smirk, internally noting that the casual address was unwelcome. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, questions if the Eleonora Society follows military rank for interactions, prompting the red-haired woman to sigh about her direct questions. Chibi Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, playfully asks if their open conversation about the king's potential praise means they have become closer. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, with a stern expression, warns that any rudeness towards her as Grand Duchess is an insult to the House of Berg and the royal family. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, reflecting on the situation, decides to be more gentle with Viscountess Gautier, whose excessive familiarity was the issue. Laura Legautier looks flustered and blushes, taken aback by Chloe's words. An ornate building is shown as a voice emphasizes the glory of Ivors. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, radiating elegance, smiles and hopes others will understand her position today. Theodora de Tournai smiles confidently as other women observe in the background. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, subtly smirks, internally reflecting that her cringy but firm message about being a fair and non-cliquish leader was understood. Laura Lagotier, looking chastened, acknowledges and apologizes for misunderstanding Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman's profound intentions. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, firmly clasps Laura Lagotier's hand, graciously accepting her offer of help. Laura Lagotier offers a subtle, somewhat uneasy smile, her thoughts unreadable. Against a grand palace view, a speaker proposes Mrs. Felperton for banquet cooking, with the Grand Duchess retaining final selection authority. Chloe clutches her head, feeling overwhelmed by the extensive considerations for assigning servants. Chloe internally muses that without Theodora she would be in trouble, wondering if Theodora, not she, should have become the Grand Duchess, or if she only makes decisions. Chloe and Theodora speak with a dark green-haired woman, who explains that the burden of such tasks could normally be shared with Her Highness the Crown Princess. Chloe, with a thoughtful expression, learns that the Crown Princess's attendance is uncertain, and Marquis Flandre is busy, making it natural that she finds handling everything from small tasks to guest reception difficult. Chloe weeps in distress, contemplating having to greet every single person on the impossibly long invitation list, which is visually represented as being 5 times her own height. Theodora, holding papers, suggests that the members of the Eleanor Society would gladly help Chloe if asked. A blonde-haired woman explains that Chloe was initially misunderstood in the Navy, but everyone eventually grew to like her. Chloe, with a subtle smirk, internally questions if that was a compliment, as Theodora elaborates that Chloe's unpretentious nature led many people to misunderstand her. Chloe smiles as the blonde-haired woman asserts the importance of the situation, implying that Chloe has never been verbally chastised by Curtis. The blonde-haired woman emphatically declares that anyone who had experienced the Grand Duchess's conversational skills would consider the ability to infuriate, without argument, the greatest socialite skill. Theodora, the blonde-haired woman with glasses, looks shocked by the blonde-haired woman's unexpected commentary. Theodora states that they will now continue with the rest of the meeting, observed by a blonde-haired woman with pigtails. The women at the long table, including Chloe, confirm their participation as Theodora announces that 6 of them, led by the Grand Duchess, will decorate the banquet hall. Chloe, Laura, and Theodora stand around a table with plates, and Laura suggests white as a color scheme for the summer event. Laura covers her mouth in surprise as Chloe explains the diplomatic ties with Glintland were established through the marriage of Queen Mildred and the late king. Laura smiles widely at a surprised Chloe, who holds a plate. Laura animatedly points and suggests blue as a color, which Chloe considers, while Theodora watches. Laura smiles brightly and gestures, with the blonde-haired woman with pigtails subtly smirking in the background. Chloe rubs her head, looking weary, internally reflecting on high society as a tiring place where everyone has a hidden agenda. The blonde-haired woman with pigtails stands with her arms crossed, looking annoyed. Chloe subtly smirks, thinking that Laura must be attempting to forge a connection with her now that her status has risen, noting her discreet actions. Theodora, the blonde-haired woman with glasses, thoughtfully examines a plate in her hand. Theodora observes Chloe, pondering that while Chloe seems helpful, she isn't overly kind and appears to want to avoid complicated high society squabbles, wondering the reason why. Chloe looks surprised, holding a plate as the red-haired woman in a blue dress informs her that His Highness the Grand Duke is waiting. A grand palace exterior is shown as Chloe wonders why the Grand Duke is there, and the red-haired woman explains he has come to escort her personally, as he has something to tell her. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles charmingly, hand on his chest, amidst sparkling light and white flowers. Curtis gracefully offers his hand to Chloe, who holds a plate and looks at him in the grand hall. Chloe, with a gentle smile, tells Theodora she must depart, and Theodora, standing with Chloe and Curtis, agrees to finalize the remaining discussion and report back to Chloe, expressing thanks. A grand palace glows under a vibrant sky as a voice instructs, "Now 1, 2," and a light jump there. The red-haired woman in a blue dress observes as Curtis dances with Chloe, instructing Chloe to watch and follow the Grand Duke's steps. Curtis smiles warmly at Chloe as they dance, asking if she has already forgotten the reason he came. Chloe, dancing with Curtis, questions if he came just to tell her that a maid ran away from the mansion, to which Curtis replies it was also time for dance practice. Curtis smiles mischievously at Chloe, asking if people typically make such a fuss over escorting their own wife, while Chloe internally counters that she doesn't mind practicing with someone else. Curtis expresses surprise that Chloe, as newlyweds, wants to dance with another man, while Chloe retorts that he shouldn't say such a thing after just escorting another woman. Curtis looks displeased, with an inset showing him walking away with another woman. Chloe stares intently, her eyes glowing red with a fierce expression. Curtis dramatically dips Chloe during their dance, prompting her to exclaim, "Whoa!" Curtis gazes down at a surprised Chloe as they dance, surrounded by a romantic glow. Curtis holds Chloe in another dramatic dip, teasingly asking, "Hey?" Curtis smiles charmingly down at Chloe, who looks surprised as they dance. Curtis smiles confidently, looking to the side. Chloe looks intently, wondering about a tournier not on the escort detail, and considering if Sarah or Theodora might retire. Chibi Chloe and Chibi Curtis hold hands within a dotted frame. As narration explains, Curtis has gone through dozens of adjutants. Chloe looks unimpressed, as a furious Chibi. Curtis shouts, "You can't lick the floor? You're fired immediately." Chloe internally remarks that such behavior would cause a revolution. The red-haired woman in a blue dress claps her hands, looking stern. Chloe grabs Curtis's arm and shouts, "Arg!" Curtis holds Chloe in a dramatic dance dip, surrounded by sparkling effects and flowers. Chloe, looking surprised, confirms she is fine, while still held in Curtis's arms. Curtis holds Chloe close, remarking that her tone is quite cynical for an expression of admiration. Chloe thinks that if others want to see the dress flutter, they could just order a servant to do it all day instead of uncomfortably wearing it themselves, as three maids are depicted comically struggling and sweating while fluttering their dresses. Chloe smiles as Curtis tells her not to relax, as there's one more step coming up, urging her to get ready. As they dance, Chloe asks Curtis what he talked about with Sergeant Tournier back then. Curtis smiles, replying that they didn't talk about anything special. Chloe looks at Curtis as an unseen speaker instructs them to step toward her grace, the Grand Duchess, this time. Curtis subtly smiles, looking away from Chloe. Chloe and Curtis dance, with Chloe wondering if Madame Dubois has taken to her bed due to illness. Chloe thinks that rumors say Madame Dubois' son is a fool because his woman was stolen by Curtis. Chloe looks visibly surprised, realizing the implication and thinking, so that's why he... The brown-haired man in uniform stands with his back to the viewer, looking out over a palace garden. Chloe and Curtis dance, as Curtis asks why she is suddenly asking about that, telling her to think carefully. The brown-haired man in uniform, with green eyes, looks sternly, thinking about Curtis's rebellious attitude every time they meet. Chloe, dressed in an elegant gown, walks alongside the brown-haired man in uniform, who thinks that Curtis's manner of looking at her has been bothering him. The brown-haired man in uniform thinks about a deal involving a few boxes of snacks, questioning if it was truly just that, as various cookies and candies are shown. The brown-haired man in uniform looks at Chloe, who stands beside him, seemingly thoughtful. Curtis holds Chloe close, and she, with a subtle smile, tells him he should be glad she's an idiot. Curtis looks intently towards his side, with a light glimmering around his eye. Curtis lowers his head with his eyes closed and a faint blush on his face. A voice laughs and tells Chloe and Curtis to focus, as an ornate building is seen at night. Women gather around a long table set with plates, including Laura Lagodier, the blonde-haired woman with pigtails, and Theodora, a blonde-haired woman with glasses, who are setting up for the banquet. Laura Lagodier explains that she has been temporarily ordered to guard a key figure, to which Theodora responds with understanding. Theodora looks thoughtful, wondering if someone has to show off their allegiance to the king's faction this much. Laura Lagodier, smiling with her eyes closed, asks Theodora if soldiers shouldn't be quick-witted. Laura Lagodier, smiling, tells Theodora that she agrees. Theodora instructs Laura Lagotier, who stands with a blonde-haired woman with pigtails, while another woman looks on, stating she understands but wonders if it doesn't work. An ornate interior is shown, and an unseen speaker asks if they should take a short breather and then continue. Various women sit comfortably on green couches in a lavish room, relaxing from their tasks. A brown-haired woman and a dark blue-haired woman look surprised as an unseen speaker explains that impoverished, fallen nobles often join because a dowry is provided. Laura Lagotier smiles, recalling someone's frugal lifestyle as pitiful, and how some peers bluntly called her shabby. Theodora thoughtfully covers her mouth, reflecting on rumors of someone's step-up marriage, but concludes that their happiness is all that matters, wondering if she should stop her. Laura Lagotier, the blonde-haired woman with pigtails, sternly tells Madame Gautier to just work and not bring shame upon the Grand Duke of Berg. The blonde-haired woman with pigtails, Laura Lagotier, responds to the woman with long blonde hair, saying she has done no such thing. Laura Lagotier laughs, thinking about typical high society backtalk, but feels ashamed over affairs of the Grand Duchess of Berg. The brown-haired woman with blue eyes stares intently, with a subtle glow in her eyes, looking troubled. A dark blue-haired woman considers that another woman isn't wrong, but questions why she's defending the one who snatched the Grand Duke, before thinking, but the brown-haired woman with blue eyes looks distressed, thinking that her tears are a waste. Laura Lagotier, the blonde-haired woman with pigtails, looks bothered and begins to say, if you are a member of Eleanor's council. Laura Lagotier, the blonde-haired woman with pigtails, explains that it was a misunderstanding, and she was merely talking about a pitiable friend from her Navy days. Laura Lagotier, with a wide smile, insists the person she spoke of is her full-blooded sibling, as an unseen speaker questions it. The brown-haired woman and the dark blue-haired woman both cover their mouths, thinking the situation is a bit too much. Theodora looks thoughtfully at an unseen speaker. Theodora suggests ending the break and getting back to work, which an unseen speaker readily agrees to. Laura Lagotier and Theodora are back at the table, with Theodora holding plates. Theodora looks weary and expresses her desire for the banquet to end already. Laura Lagotier asks Theodora about the initiation ceremony for the Grand Duchess, and Theodora replies it's not her decision and should happen when the Marquis of Flandre is present. The blonde-haired woman with turquoise eyes smiles subtly, thinking there will be a big change during the banquet. Theodora diligently writes at her desk, reflecting on the Grand Duke Berg causing a ruckus. The brown-haired man in uniform, seen from behind, addresses Theodora as Lieutenant. Theodora is utterly shocked and exclaims upon learning that the Duke of Glintland has disappeared again, describing her as a master at ditching escorts despite being a regular noble. A chibi, pink-haired woman with curly hair apologizes, imagining an excuse that the garden was so beautiful, she just kept walking. The chibi, pink-haired woman apologetically explains she got lost looking for the restroom, causing her escort to miss her. The chibi, pink-haired woman feels guilty about her personal errands mobilizing the army, eager for an island tour boat. The elegant, pink-haired woman spreads her arms, a radiant vision of freedom under a golden, glowing sky. The brown-haired woman in uniform appears greatly stressed and overwhelmed by the unpredictable disappearances of her charge. The brown-haired woman in uniform confronts the pink-haired woman, respectfully addressing her as the Duke of Glintland. The brown-haired woman in uniform warns that her repeated ditching of escorts will be considered an act of espionage. The pink-haired woman merrily waves goodbye, floating away amidst clouds and sparkling light. A chibi king reasons a heartbroken woman's wandering, but the chibi brown-haired woman angrily questions if she's not a woman for drinking when heartbroken. The brown-haired man in uniform bursts into the room, shouting in alarm, startling the brown-haired woman in uniform. The pink-haired woman and the king sit together at a table, both smiling contentedly. The brown-haired woman in uniform reacts in shock to news of the Duke being with the king, learning the Marquis of Flanders will handle her request. The brown-haired woman in uniform addresses Lieutenant Tournier, who stands facing the king and the pink-haired woman. Lieutenant Tournier offers a sincere apology, her gaze cast downwards in thoughtful regret. The king criticizes Grand Duke Berg for revealing his true colors, while Lieutenant Tournier stands nearby listening. The king, with a knowing smile, directly questions Lieutenant Tournier about her involvement in the Eleonora Society. The king places a hand on Lieutenant Tournier's shoulder, engaging her in a seemingly tense conversation. Lieutenant Tournier mentally curses, disliking this situation the most, and recalls, quote, "yesterday's Sarah" with frustration. Lieutenant Tournier looks exasperated as she hears about the Grand Duke escorting someone and relying on her for the Grand Duchess. Lieutenant Tournier hides her face, forcing a cheerful exclamation of "wonderful," despite her obvious stress. The pink-haired woman and the king sit composedly at their table, continuing their private discussion. Lieutenant Tournier stands reflectively in the opulent room, her back to the viewer, hands clasped. The upcoming 28th diplomatic anniversary banquet with Glintland will mark Chloe's official debut. The ornate palace interior glitters with elegance, adorned with blue and purple flowers awaiting the banquet. Two elegantly dressed women admire the banquet's beauty, noting its romantic atmosphere for a summer event. The dark blue-haired woman marvels at the Grand Duchess's luck, hearing a remarkable lady was sent to assist. The brown-haired woman finds the banquet preparations decent, yet disappointing, then wonders if she spoke out of turn. The dark blue-haired woman laughs, acknowledging the Grand Duke's role in preventing a total disaster. Chloe and Curtis stand elegantly together, radiating grace in their lavish formal attire amidst sparkling light. Chloe and Curtis greet guests, with Chloe graciously accepting a compliment on her beauty at the event. Chloe smiles with glowing eyes, acknowledging the positive reactions and the various types of people present. Chloe considers how her husband's prominence leads to comparisons, musing on her wedding attire and diverse societal reactions. Chibi Chloe rubs her head, feeling completely drained by the effort of dealing with diverse personalities. The panel declares, "So first, let's eat," emphasizing the excellent welfare of the Grand Duke's household servants. Chloe resolves to fully enjoy the lavish banquet's benefits, given her temporary role as Grand Duchess. Chibi Chloe and Chibi Curtis happily feast at a table laden with delicious banquet food. Curtis teases Chloe for eating so much, and she retorts that starving isn't a Grand Duchess's duty. Chloe's intense gaze observes everyone pretending not to listen as she considers the timing of an action. Curtis looks thoughtfully away, beginning to speak with, "Speaking of which." Curtis tells Chloe his hopes for an easier life after marrying her were shattered, prompting her to question how. Curtis comically laments his increased overtime and missed meals, leading amused guests to call them a comedy duo. Chloe dramatically reminds guests of the Grand Duke's harsh treatment, referencing a published guard's log. Chloe intensely points her finger, highlighting one good thing about the strict royal guard. Chloe dramatically laments her lack of time to eat as Grand Duchess, finding it excessive, while guests chuckle. Chloe thanks the two women for their diligent help during a hectic time, anticipating a wonderful banquet. Chloe smiles brightly, declaring their success as a blessing from the great Dragon Banes. One woman deems the new Grand Duchess not bad, while the other expresses delight in assisting Her Highness. Chloe's determined eye reflects her thought that with decent reactions, only accepting greetings remains to solidify her image. A crowd of guests gathers, eagerly awaiting the opportunity to offer their greetings. Chloe fiercely vows to maximize her inner intimidation, accepting her unavoidable role as Grand Duchess and banquet host. Count Orrin expresses pleasure at meeting Chloe, who confidently recognizes him as the one in charge of the Southern Mines. The hellish small talk of the banquet finally ends, leaving a light brown-haired woman in a blue dress looking utterly exhausted. Curtis confronts the light brown-haired woman in a blue dress, teasing her for previously nagging him about eating, now that she looks so worn out herself. The light brown-haired woman in a blue dress retorts that she was actually cursing at Curtis earlier and demands to know if there is fruit, while Curtis denies nagging her. The light brown-haired woman in a blue dress requests something non-sweet to cleanse her palate, and though Curtis suggests cheese, she secretly loves it, making him wonder about her state. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, takes a bite of food, seemingly enjoying it as an unseen speaker anticipates the main character's arrival. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, pauses mid-bite, her expression shifting to one of surprise and confusion. A sudden realization hits, with an unseen speaker questioning why the king is appearing with that woman. The king, the reddish brown-haired man, stands proudly with Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, on a balcony, both smiling contentedly. The king, the reddish brown-haired man, and Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, continue to smile from the balcony, a serene moment for them. A buzz of murmuring fills the grand hall as guests watch the king and Duchess Isabel appear on the balcony. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, looks distressed, wondering if the king's appearance with Duchess Isabel constitutes a diplomatic breach. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, offers a wry smile, musing that the scene looks more like the king's remarriage banquet. The light, brown-haired woman in a blue dress sighs, expressing her exasperation alongside the dark-haired woman and the stoic, silver-haired man. The silver-haired man laments that things wouldn't be so bad if the queen had lived longer, while the light brown-haired woman in a blue dress resignedly states that some people are simply rotten and it can't be helped. The light brown-haired woman in a blue dress reflects on a petty man who tormented the queen solely due to her appearance. The king, the reddish brown-haired man, beams with a self-satisfied and somewhat mischievous expression. The light brown-haired woman in a blue dress glares, thinking that the king looks smugly pleased with himself. The light brown-haired woman in a blue dress stands observing the scene, with Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, visible in the background. The light brown-haired woman in a blue dress looks distressed, deep in thought, clearly troubled by the unfolding events. Under a vivid purple and orange sky, an unseen speaker joyfully declares they are having a wonderful time. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, graciously thanks a blonde-haired woman in a green dress for her compliments on the banquet. The king, embracing Duchess Isabel, declares that despite his matchmaking failure, the eternal friendship between nations makes everything for the best, while Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, observes. The king, the reddish-brown-haired man, expresses humble gratitude for Chloe's favor, to which she responds with a knowing, "Oh ho!" The king, the reddish-brown-haired man, smiles broadly with a sly, knowing glint in his eyes. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, forces a polite smile despite her inner irritation, responding to the king with a sarcastic remark. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, watches as Duchess Isabel playfully flirts with the king, feigning shyness and complimenting his kindness, much to Chloe's internal exasperation. Duchess Isabel asks for the Grand Duke, and Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, coolly replies that she anticipated this and the Grand Duke will arrive shortly. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, responds to a guest's wish to see her and Curtis together again, dryly noting they already saw them at the wedding. Lieutenant Tournier, the blonde-haired woman in military uniform, expresses gratitude to Duchess Isabel for her actions, clarifying it was for the glory of Evenese and the Duke of Glitland. The blonde-haired woman in a green dress greets the Duke of Glitland with a bright, welcoming smile. The blonde-haired woman in a green dress proudly announces that she personally selected the banquet's tableware to match the Duke of Glitland's handsome appearance. The blonde-haired woman in a green dress boasts about choosing all the banquet decorations, causing the light brown-haired woman in a blue dress to sigh in exasperation, recalling they had divided the work. Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, reacts with a demure "ah," covering her mouth as if in polite surprise. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, stand composedly together, observing the ongoing banquet. Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, playfully tells the Duke of Glitland that despite their first meeting, he speaks as if they are already acquainted. Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, smiles, mentioning portraits of the Grand Duke of Berg. An unseen speaker confirms that young ladies clip newspaper illustrations of the handsome Grand Duke of Berg, a testament to his popularity. Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, offers a knowing, seductive smile. The king, the reddish-brown-haired man, grandly announces that he will grant his Grand Duke a dance with the Duke of Glitland. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks utterly exasperated, silently thinking, "Honestly." Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, asks when Curtis will give other ladies a chance to dance, while secretly thinking that's why she's avoiding dancing. The king, the reddish-brown-haired man, sinisterly suggests that if the Grand Duke ignores the Duke of Glintland, the Grand Duchess's banquet will be a failure. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, becomes visibly enraged, accusing the king of being petty and trying to humiliate her at the banquet. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, asks Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, for her thoughts, to which she internally responds with exasperation about the absurdity of the situation. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks visibly distressed and tearful. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, calmly asks for a chance for the young ladies to greet him. Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman, sarcastically observes Curtis's gentleness, then cheerfully tells him to leave things to her as she'll find him a new marriage prospect. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, initially praises Chloe's consideration, but then expresses anger, while an unseen speaker warns Chloe that the Grand Duke is furious. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, courteously extends his hand to Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, inviting her. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, gracefully dances with Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, as the banquet proceeds with many other dancing couples. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, dances with Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, while mentally complaining about a headache-inducing unpleasant perfume scent. Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, smiles widely at Curtis, the blonde-haired man, who maintains a wary expression as she states she sees things differently. Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, confesses to Curtis, the blonde-haired man, her past fantasies of him as her husband, claiming he is even more wonderful in person. A close-up shows Duchess Isabel's, the pink-haired woman's, hand reaching towards Curtis's, the blonde-haired man's, side during their dance. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, looks away, internally remarking on Duchess Isabel's creativity and suggesting she could perform at a grand theater. Two pairs of dancing feet are visible as one speaker states they dislike both options presented, and another questions what they do like. Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, smiles playfully, calling a previous comment so mean while continuing her dance. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, and Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, gracefully dance together, surrounded by white roses and a sparkling ambiance. Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, leans seductively into Curtis, the blonde-haired man, during their dance, gazing up at him with a flirtatious expression as musical notes float. A grand palace building is shown as an unseen speaker states they are already married, while another implies that divorce is hardly a flaw for men, especially from a partner of lower birth. Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, objects that she wouldn't go so far as to call Chloe's status a flaw, but an unseen speaker sharply rebukes her for daring to speak such words. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, internally concedes that the previous speaker's point about Chloe's low status is valid, as he has used it to his advantage, yet finds the whole situation strangely irritating. Duchess Isabel, the pink-haired woman, looks with a questioning expression at Curtis, the blonde-haired man, who has turned his face away from her. Curtis, the blonde-haired man, smiles cunningly, thinking that even a woman with a child is considered a decent catch, which is followed by a fierce, glowing-eyed reaction from Chloe, the dark blue-haired woman.